Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. This is the October regular meeting for the Board of Finance. Several of us before the meeting this evening went over to the first Public Service Awards, which is a combination event honoring police and fire personnel from throughout the town for their efforts on our behalf over the past year and recognizing some exemplary behavior and acts by police, firemen, as well as citizens. With that in mind, two things. I'm going to ask our own Chris DeWitt, who was a volunteer fireman at one point, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And secondly, I'm going to ask for a moment of silence after the pledge to recognize those police and fire across the United States who gave their lives in the past year. So, Mr. DeWitt.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Flynn.
Thank you. All right. This evening we have a number of items on our agenda. First, we'll approve some minutes. Second, we're going to hear an update from Mr. Hiller, I think, in the first Selectman on the current status of the fuel tank removal project at Fire Station 1 on Reef Road. The board has been given some documents, both electronically and a hard copy, to update us on an unfortunate situation there. We're going to hear about a transfer from an increase in the state grant revenue to be made in $55,655 per year for each of 3 years, for a total of $166,965 to cover the cost of Fairfield's planning and preparedness in response to bioterrorism, pandemic influenza, and other public health emergencies. We're going to review and discuss the proposed purchasing regulations and guidelines. That's a carryover from a prior meeting. We're going to hear, consider, and perhaps act upon a request from the Board of Education for a bond appropriation in the amount of $901,000 to fund a roof extension program and a warranty extension program at Sherman, North Stratfield, Osborne Hill, Riverfield, and Holland Hill Elementary Schools. We're going to hear and act upon a series of transfers of funds for the prior year budget, correct, Paul, as we straighten out the accounts in preparation for the audit. And we're going to hear, consider, and act upon a request from the fiscal officer to approve certain schedules carrying over funds for encumbrances and reappropriations for the prior fiscal year. With that, that's the state of play tonight. Any questions, comments, concerns from board members? Seeing none. Mr. Hiller, why don't we just briefly start on item number, well, let's go to item number 1 to approve the minutes, and then we'll go to item 2. Item 1, approve the minutes of the quarterly review meeting held on July 27th, 2011, and to approve the minutes of the regular meeting on September 8th, 2011. Any questions, comments, concerns with those minutes? Seeing none, do I have a motion? Mr. Bolito, seconded by Mr. DeWitt. All in favor of accepting those minutes? Opposed? Abstentions? Those items carry unanimously. Just a programming note, Mr. Kiley sends his regrets this evening. He had a business, I don't want to call it an emergency, but a business situation developed, so he will be unable to attend. Item number 2, to hear an update from the Director of Public Works. Actually, we have the First Selectman and the Chief Fiscal Officer here on the current status of the fuel tank removal project at Fire Station 1 on Reef Road. We received an electronic memo as well as some pictures of the work that were being done behind that fire station. Mr. Hiller, do you want to briefly walk us through this? Everyone, there's no action to be taken on this item tonight. This is for information purposes only because they need to resolve the situation. Speed is of an urgency here. And the First Selectman and the Chief Fiscal Officer will come back to us at a later date, as will the Board of Selectmen, with a recommendation for some future action. But Mr. Hiller, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've communicated to the board over the last 10 days, I think, some obvious concerns that we have as far as what is happening in back of Fire Station 1, Fire Headquarters on Reef Road. We also sent to you today some pictures that Mr. Stanky took, which clearly demonstrate in the pictures what the magnitude of the problem. The fuel tank, primarily the real problem tank was the one which 2,000-gallon diesel tank, which obviously was used for the fire apparatus. Clearly has been leaking for some time, and this has spread throughout our property there. DEP has been involved. Connecticut Tank Removal has been on site. The stone that you look at in some of the pictures that were mailed electronically has been delivered by our Public Works Department, so it's been a cooperative effort. Because of some legitimate concerns that this board had last winter and spring over the accounting, when we ran into a smaller problem, this at the old academy, in between Independence Hall and Old Town Hall, I just felt it necessary to keep the board posted on this. There was an appropriation in the non-recurring budget, fiscal 11, of $152,000 for these tanks to be removed, and also this tank at Station 5. The tank at Station 5 was completed successfully, and other than a few electrical things, is basically done. As you can tell from Mr. White's memo, we've gone significantly over what has to be done to remediate the problem and to comply with DEP orders at this time. Mr. White was prepared to come this evening, and in talking with the chairman, we felt it wasn't necessary, but we did want to at least let you know that for the short term, the intent is to expense these expenditures within the Public Works budget. Clearly, there is going to be a need to come back, I think probably not before the January meeting of this board for a special appropriation, because this type of money cannot be handled within the Public Works operating budget. The decision as to how we fund that, it could be on short-term basis. We have obviously $152,000, which is on a short-term basis. There are other funds in this year's budget for other tank removals. There's the $100,000 that was under the control of the Board of Education for the tank removal at Holland Hill School. And we have, for the most part, been doing these on a short-term basis through bond anticipation notes, and obviously that decision will be a decision between the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance as to how we fund it. But clearly, the numbers are significantly more than our funds available, even if we were to cancel the other projects that we had in this year's budget. So that's where we are. These are estimates. As each day goes along, I think we get a better handle on what they are. The key variable at this point in time is to how long we're going to have to be monitoring this situation, which is one of the big numbers here. Several of the costs have already been incurred. The ongoing costs are the ones that are difficult to measure at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Hiller. Any questions, comments from board members? Mr. Stone.
Paul, I understand it's a major leak, but is there a law that we have to clean it up? I mean, is there something that says we have to do it? Or could we not do it?
I don't really think in this case, having been at the site on several occasions over the last 2 weeks, I don't think we have very many options here. And DEP, we were mandated to bring DEP in, the state. They have been there. They come back on a regular basis to monitor it. And I think, frankly, in an effort to be good citizens ourselves, we place these demands on private citizens and corporations. We have to, toe the line on this one. I'm not versed, Bob, on the the exact statutes or regulations, and I think, either Rich or Tom Stanky could probably be best suited to discuss that, and will be when we, realize the full magnitude of it. But I don't know if any of you have been there, but it's, and Mike could probably address it. I know there have been complaints in his office. It's not a pleasant task that's over there. There are odors that have been emanating from the site, and I think that has been controlled at this point, but there was a difficult period when you expose this stuff.
Mr. Chairman, through you, could we get a ruling from, don't want to say the town attorney, but an attorney, that we have to do this? I'm just curious.
Mr. Tetreau, would you like to address that?
Happy to get a ruling to confirm that. I think that certainly one of the complications in this is that the tank and the leak had been leaking, it appears, for a number of years. It looks like there is, for lack of a better term, I guess I'd call it an underground stream, and that is part of what the concern is, and that in essence we are, or the tanks were polluting that stream, and that can carry in across or under the private properties all the way onto the marsh. So at some point we need to take care of that, as Mr. Hiller said, from certainly from a good citizen standpoint. But we will get you the exact ruling so you know the extent that we're required to by the law and by the state DEP.
Mr. Mayor?
Was this project started because we're putting in above-ground tanks and we're replacing the tanks?
We had appropriated money in the prior year for the removal. It's an ongoing projects at all of the fire stations. There's money in this year's budget for the tanks at Station 2, and part of the intent is, in some of the newer regulations, are to put these tanks above ground. This one was buried along. There were really two tanks there. There's a 2,000-gallon diesel fuel tank and a 1,000-gallon heating fuel tank. The diesel fuel tank, which was, as I mentioned earlier, supplying motor fuel to the apparatus, is the problem, the primary problem.
Yeah, no,
This is an ongoing initiative that's gone back, I'm going to say, at least 3 years, where underground tanks are getting to the end of their design life, and so there's a plan in place to go back and remove those and either replace them underground or move them above ground. This is happening within the school district, at different school buildings as well as here.
Yeah, I don't think you can put them underground anymore. I think it's against the law. You can?
Yeah, you'll find most service stations have their tanks underground.
Interesting. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Mr. DeWitt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess to Mr. Hiller, because Mr. White isn't here, I saw the pictures today. I mean, that's a big hole, and you don't really realize it till you see the machine in there and realize, I mean, it's a great picture with the machine in there, right? The water, I was reading in the memo, that's standing water? That's not from rain. Is that water that's occupying that hole at all times?
I think a little bit it's rainwater. If you see, and we don't have the pictures here, but there's a pipe that you see, kind of a grayish pipe that's...
Yeah, I noticed, yeah.
That's basically a roof drain pipe that has been installed that is draining the roof off of the fire station.
Driving into cisterns.
And that's been placed there to keep that water at least out of the hole. As Mr. Tetreau has indicated, there seems to be some underground stream. Obviously, you're close to a tidal situation there too, where this stuff is backing up. And it appears that
Looks that way.
some of the water is heading in what I would geographically call a southwesterly direction towards some of the marshland out of that thing. And there clearly is an ebb and flow which is tidal in that spot, because you can see, and And before some of those pictures were taken, you can see where the high water mark was and stains on some of the rocks that were there, which is obviously the oil that's
Right.
backing up by the tidal flow.
So the current state is that the tanks are out of the ground, are they
Yes.
not? Okay, so that hole we're seeing is where the new tanks will occupy.
Yes, that the issue is that they had been leaking for a while, so not all the oil has come back.
Right.
No, I'm
So
with you.
that's part of the filtering that has to take place. And it's part of, if you look at the overall topography and some of the history, and we found this out when we're looking at the downtown flooding issues, downtown was built on a swamp. All right? And then as we've gone back and cleaned up our stormwater drain runoff, not only because we built and caused more runoff.
Sure.
Then we've gone back to the sewer system and made sure that people weren't illegally or dumping into the sewer system. We made them put it into the stormwater system. We've now created more overflow in the stormwater system. So some of this is tied into the historical problems we've had with flooding in the downtown and a high water table and the proximity to the marshland.
And then my last question is just dollars and cents. So on our 2010, 2011 budget, we had $180,000.
152, actually. There's a misprint in the budget book. It's really
Oh,
152.
live by this thing. I can't believe there's a misprint in here. 100, okay, 152. And then this year we put in 105.
And that was for other projects, or intended for other projects.
$105,000 removing and upgrading. Next year's plan is Fire Station 1. Oh, excuse me, Fire Station at 2 Jennings Road.
1 and
So
5 were
that's
in
different. So there's nothing in this year's budget?
for this. This is capital projects that were carried over. You may recall when we had this discussion back last winter on that some of that money had originally been expensed. When we ran into the problem at Old Academy last June and July, and we had to make some transfers within the budget to expense that project properly, which again was another leaky tank, which ran in the 80,000 range.
So when we say here, or when Mr. White says here, we're going to overrun by $365,000,
That's over the,
that's over the 150,
Look-
the
look at
152 was a
page.
bunch of,
Look at page 2.
yeah, but that's,
It has 152 listed.
it does, but it looks like the only thing that was spent was Fire Station 1, and that original
Fire
150.
Station 5, too.
Fire Station 5 is
Oh, for
done.
38 okay, for
That's the
$38,000.
38,590.
But there was supposed to be more done for that 152 than just those two things, right?
Yeah, there was one other that was pushed up.
Fire Station 1, 2, and 5.
And that's why
And this
2 was
erroneously
moved
says
into
Fire
this
Station 1
year,
says
and
to
there's a
1,000
new
gallons.
appropriation for 2 for this year, which has not commenced.
So, okay, so that's my point. So it's going to be more than 365, because Mr. White's going to come back to us at budget time and say, oh, well, I burned off the 150,
Yep.
finishing off Fire Station 1 and 2, much to Mr. Flynn's point, plus all the other stuff I spent. So we'll be seeing this again to do Fire Station,
Well,
whether it be
that's
2 and
only if-
5, right?
Well, I think
I'm
that,
five,
that
five,
may
five.
depend on the proposal that comes back here, and certainly we potentially lay out those options in terms of however we're going to fund the overage to cover the leak and the cleanup.
Right.
Do we also want to fund it enough to cover the additional tank that was in the original appropriation, or not? Or, so at that point, it could be, let's defer it to the following year,
Yeah.
or let's increase the expenditure enough to get it completed this year.
And I think, let's let them continue the work, finish the job, and come back to us and give us a recommendation on how to do it.
So I guess, I know we're not voting on this tonight, but maybe I would recommend that the number they come back with be not just a number for this, but to finish the whole tank project.
With
What's your point?
With your permission, if we break it out, then you'll be able to see what it is, and this board would be able to decide whether you want to go for the whole enchilada or just part.
That's great, because we didn't have that level of detail before. Great, thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns? A couple of points on this. Number one, I want to thank Mr. Hiller. because as soon as this was brought to his attention, he immediately alerted myself, and I immediately had the opportunity to alert the board. And we were able to get that additional information through the past week out to, so that this, A, should not be a surprise, and B, so that we know what we're up against in a couple of months' time. So I think that's the way it's supposed to work, so I would thank you for that. And secondly, I would hope that you would give a similar presentation to the RTM. I know the RTM will get the same documents we did because they get our documents, but I think it would be appropriate for them to know of this situation, much like we were. So I would ask if we could make that happen. I think that'd be great. So, and Mr. Tetreau, I assume the Board of Selectmen already knows, right?
I'll speak to the moderator in that regard and perhaps put an item on their agenda for a similar presentation.
Thanks, and if any additional information should, or relevant or materially different information.
Hopefully, it can only get better from here.
Hopefully, yeah. Thank you so much. Anybody else, any questions, comments, concerns from the public on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll go to item number 3. Resolve that a transfer of funds from an increase in state grant revenue be made in the amount of $55,655 per year for each of 3 years, for a total of $166,965 to cover the cost of Fairfield's continued planning in preparedness for and response to bioterrorism, pandemic influenza, and other public health emergencies. And further resolve that the first selectman be authorized to make, execute, and approve on behalf of the town of Fairfield any and all contracts or amendments thereof with the State of Connecticut Department of Public Health to conduct activities described in the personal service agreement log with regard to an August 10th, 2011 through August 9th, 2014 cooperative agreement award from the Centers of Disease Control through the state of Connecticut. These costs are 100% reimbursable, and I don't want to read this again. So, good afternoon, good evening. Mr. Cleary, please.
Thank you. So this is essentially the same resolution request that we had last spring. The only difference is the state has come back and said, instead of a one-year contract, we're going to issue a 3-year contract. Same dollar amount, $55,655 that you approved last spring. So we've brought this before you to say it's essentially the same thing times 3. The state has asked for a new resolution with that $166,965 amount in it.
Do we know why they changed it from 1 year to 3 years?
They've been working on it for some time to lessen the impact on having to come before the boards every year, and every health department is trying to do that, and the CDC finally gave approval to do 3-year contracts as opposed to 1 year at a time.
Great. Thank you. Questions, comments, concerns on this item from board members? Mrs. Leclerc?
Will we still lay out the money annually and then be reimbursed annually, or will?
That's correct. Yeah, essentially what we've put it in here is it's still the $55,000 or in that area each year, and we'll do it one time per year, and then essentially the state sends us a check. Once we complete certain contract deliverables, the state sends us a check for that amount. So we still do it 1 year at a time.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns from board members? Seeing none, I'll go to the public. Any comments, questions from the public? None. Back to the board. Do I have a motion? Mr. Bolito, do I have a second? Mr. DeWitt, the item as read previously is before us. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? The item carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cleary. Good luck. All right. Item number 4, to review, discuss, and act upon a revised purchasing regulations and guidelines for all town departments, including the Board of Education, as proposed by the Director of Purchasing. Such regulations and guidelines are pursuant to Article 12, Section 12.9 of the Charter of the Town of Fairfield. This item was tabled from our regular monthly meeting held on September 8th, 2011. My colleagues will recall that we had a rather lengthy discussion that evening of the entire policy that had not been reviewed since the late 1990s. Some discussion ensued as regards the ability to use the internet to obtain favorable pricing. We asked for a ruling from in the town attorney's office regarding the legality of that in a public bid process, as well as we asked the Director of Purchasing to come back with her thoughts, concerns regarding such procedures. We also asked Mr. DeWitt, who's got a professional background in purchasing, to work closely with the department on this item, and I thank him for his time and service on this. And I'd ask Ms. Holland to come forward, Ms. Kennelly to come forward, and I'll turn the floor over to the two ladies as well as Mr. DeWitt to continue our discussion on the item. Please.
Good evening. I'm Twig Holland. I'm Director of Purchasing, and I'd like to give you another overview of the last 400 years in purchasing, or perhaps the next 400 years in purchasing. As Mr. Flynn mentioned, when we met last month, we talked about a brief history of purchasing, why we proposed updating the bidding requirements. There was a significant discussion and review of the new requirements, and we ended by discussing some of the benefits. In the past month, we've done a couple of different things. I am a member of the Public Purchasing Association of Connecticut, and I polled that group. We have an online chat function, so to speak. And I reached out to my colleagues to see if any other towns were doing as suggested, and the suggestion was that we solicit bids via the traditional method and then look on the internet to see if we could get a more favorable price. And if we could, of course, we would buy from that supplier. I also attended a monthly ISM Connecticut workshop last week, and during the open forum, asked the same question from my colleagues there, who were about 30-some people, and primarily in the private sector. And it's interesting to report that no one in the public or the private sector is doing anything like this with bidding. A lot of people are using the internet to place orders, but no one is using to check prices, perhaps to benchmark and so forth. But nobody is doing any bidding this way, not in the public or the private sector. I also went online to ISM National, to the library there, and came up as empty-handed as well. In your advance package is a memo that I wrote with some of the concerns that I've identified with doing as suggested. And as I stated when we met last month, I think it's an excellent opportunity for a reverse auction, and we have used reverse auctions in the past. My overriding concerns are, which products do we use this for? When I went through the bids that we did in the last couple of years, I identified anywhere from 35 to, I think it was 40 bids, where there may be an opportunity to do this. We can find cars online. So do we do it only for, I think the example that we were using last time was the USB flash drives. Do we use it only for commodities like that, or can we use it for cars as well? I put in a 15-foot snowplow, and I got 3 million hits. So clearly there's some activity out there that we'd have to call through. One of the other concerns is who determines which criteria we use? How do we apply this to different purchases? How do we ensure the legitimacy of an internet supplier? And I have a handout that I can share with you in a little bit. That's somewhat interesting. In one example that I used for baby wipes, several of the suppliers had only an internet presence, an 800 number, and an address. There was no physical location noted in the About section of the website. What do we do if a supplier can't provide the entire quantity that we would need? Do we go to multiple suppliers? Most of these websites require use of credit cards and/or PayPal, which may present other logistical issues in that there's no approval process when you use a credit card. So how do we document the sale? How do we set up an audit trail? How do we ensure that the people who have credit cards, which would be for significantly higher values, and I'm guessing significantly more cards, how do we ensure that they're used properly? And that everything goes through the appropriate approval process. And the other thing, a couple of things that we discovered was that the internet prices fluctuate. I did some work last week on September 27th. I went back to the same baby wipes today and got some very different responses and some very different prices. As mentioned in the legal memo, there is no purchase order, there is no bid document that contains the town's terms and conditions. So once the buyer clicks on I agree or I accept, that person commits the town to accepting the seller's terms and conditions, perhaps without reading them first or without understanding what they are. The town is on the hook for whatever that purchase is. Do we look at some of the things? Right now, we bid the sale and repair and service of tires. Do we split that up? If we can get better bids through the internet for tires, do we split that up where we bid tires on the internet and we have service only that's bid traditionally? So we have two separate suppliers. Same with parts for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning equipment. Do we bid the parts only and the repair and the service separately? So that is something that would have to be negotiated. We talked about a fair way to advise bidders if we're doing it in a traditional method. We talked about putting in the bid document itself. This is the price on the internet, meet it or beat it. And then can we reasonably expect to see a decline in participation via traditional bid or traditional suppliers through the standard bid method if they're passed over in favor of purchasing strictly from the internet. Right now, our staff is preparing traditional bids. We use the internet to do some benchmarking. We have a couple of different tools. We'll use the Department of Administrative Services website. For fuel purchases, we used the Journal of Commerce, New Haven Harbor prices. There are some things that will go to GSA. There are some times when we'll go to consortiums, even though we're not buying from them, but we'll use various tools to benchmark to get an idea of what we can expect to pay for a product before we do a bid. We don't, right now, with the present staff, we don't have the resources to do both a traditional bid and internet shopping. I found through my baby wipes exercise that it took a little bit longer. It took considerably longer, actually, than I would have expected to cull through some of the data. And I'm not horribly experienced with it. Ken could probably run circles around me, but no, I'm reasonably competent, and it took some time to go through some of the things. And I guess in summary, what if the board does want to consider this, what I ask is that we have some very clearly defined criteria for when it's done, for the dollar value, the applications, the pre-approval process, use of credit cards, and so forth, because it would be a hybrid, decentralized purchasing for some products and centralized purchasing for others. What I'd like to do, if you have a moment, is distribute the exercise that I went through for baby wipes, primarily because it was either that or adult diapers, as being some pretty commonly used products.
Good choice. Sure, you can Twig, go right ahead and distribute. While you're doing that, Mr. DeWitt, what have you found out, or what's your experience been within the public sector in this, or private sector, rather?
No, not a lot of experience with my particular line of business, obviously. I queried a bunch of people, and actually, I would really take us to Ms. Kennelly's
Thank you.
legal reference to the internet purchasing, because I think she's done a really good job of highlighting the issues on, and we have this all in our package. Because the big things that I brought up last month, Ms. Kennelly hit on right away, and it's in the second page, right? The bulleted items, you know. First off, can the bids be fair? But when is an internet contract made? Is it when you hit the I agree button? And then a couple of things that I didn't think about was, you know, the last two. So who gets sued if something goes wrong? And where do they get sued? So it all gets back to hitting that little I agree button and not reading the 35 pages of stuff that when we go online and buy shoes and zip drives, right? We just go through and say, yeah, you know. It just shows up in my door, I'm all cool with it. Unfortunately, in the broader scheme of the town, we need to be very much aware of it. And I think Twig's point is valid. If anyone with a town credit card can go in and put in their number and hit I agree, and you've bound the town by all the things under that contractual obligation. And it's funny because Twig and I were having a conversation about terms and conditions. You know, Micah, we never accept anyone's terms and conditions. We give them terms and conditions, and then it's a big debate, right? But it's never easy. It's always, you know, there's always some back and forth. So to just think we could blindly hit the button and agree to those terms and conditions is a little much, right? So I would, if you haven't looked at this already, this is really worth perusing before we make a final decision.
Mrs. Kennelly, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
Well, I also did a bit of internet research just generally on the subject of internet purchasing, and like Twig, I found really very, very little, except for a couple of articles on consumer purchasing, but there was really nothing on business bidding type purchasing at all that I could find. It seems to be one of those things, sort of like computers in schools. It's one of those things that's touted as the thing to come, but when is the day going to come?
Right.
And it doesn't seem to be here yet. Commercial law doesn't seem to have caught up at all to the e-commerce world yet. It's in the process, but it's not there yet. And it would be, I think, very risky to start on a process of doing just internet purchasing, which we can't do anyway, and we can't anyway because we do have to do traditional bidding for some things. Whenever we get a state grant, we've got to go through traditional bidding. So it's not like we could abandon traditional bidding. We still have to do it for some things. So is there any real benefit to abandoning it for other things? And I just see this as being too risky a legal world right now to do that.
There's 3 items that I want to make sure we are doing for the internet, though. And that's number one, you alluded to it before. Even though we may not do the acquisition through the internet, you are using the internet as a benchmark to get pricing to establish what you believe we should be paying from suppliers for goods and services. Is that
We
right?
do, yes.
Okay. You're also using reverse bidding, as you spoke about previously.
When we have opportunities, we have used a reverse auction. The most notable was for power.
Okay.
We did a reverse auction for our electricity purchases.
Okay. And the third item was actually something that you brought up, but Mrs. Leclerc hit on later in the meeting again, was the whole concept of the email notifications, of which you had indicated, I guess there was some software or something that needed to be procured so that you could actually send notifications out that to particular vendors that, hey, this is available for bidding.
Yes.
at this point.
Yes.
What do we know about that?
I would have to go back and update the work that I had done on that. It's roughly 5 years old, or perhaps older at this point. Things change rapidly in the software world.
Yeah, Mrs. Leclerc asked that be done already.
Yeah.
Is that?
I didn't have an opportunity to update that.
Okay.
But that said, what I would like to do is work on that sometime between now and the budget hearings, because it is something that would probably be included in my budget.
And how much approximately did you think that's going to cost?
I think it's less than $10,000.
Less than $10,000, and it would allow you, once a bid was prepared, to send an email notification out to a vendor community to say, this is out here, come take a look at this. This RFP is out here, come take a look at this and bid on it.
It would be to suppliers who are registered and part of the database, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And we can actually code those suppliers by a number of different commodities so that we touch a lot of people, depending on how many products they may have in their line.
Okay. And Ms. Kennelly, to go back to your point, you're concerned that we're getting a little ahead of on the skis here, and that commercial law hasn't caught up with what our exposure might be if we do this through the internet, is
I
what you're
think
saying.
that's right. It's not even absolutely, as I understand it, a certain point that the contract is made when you hit that I accept button. You may be accepting the terms and conditions, but that may not be the actual point of contracting, which may not come, and pretty clearly in the consumer world does not come until they actually ship the goods to you. That's when they actually charge you for them. If you're buying a T-shirt or something like that, that's not that big a deal. But if you're buying 1,000 of something and you need them now, you can't just wait and see if they're going to show up on your doorstep.
Well,
you need
to
some-
complicate things, they can actually charge you before they ship it. I know that through my own business. Yeah.
So it's, but still, if you need those items, how are you then going to, how do you figure out who you're going to sue? Where is the company? As Twig said, in some cases, there's no address. You don't know who they are, you don't know where they are. These sorts of things, an existence just on the internet is something that I don't think the law has in any way caught up with. It really, everything depends upon the notion that there's a physical place that you're dealing with. And that physical place also determines, unless you're using our terms and conditions, what law may apply to the contract. Right, as we do it, you would have the law of Connecticut apply, so at least we know what law we're dealing with. Suppliers may choose the law where they're located. They may choose a law that's simply favorable to them. The way credit card companies always use South Dakota because they have no usury laws. They may not have anything else to do with South Dakota, but that's the law they choose to use. And we don't really, I think, want to get ourselves involved in trying to work out 50 different states' laws or be stuck with a law that's really not favorable to us by accepting the terms and conditions of an internet seller.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Bolito?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there anything in state statutes that requires a town or municipality to bid out what I would call everyday goods, things like office supplies, cleaning supplies, things that are purchased in bulk but are not what you would call durable goods or things that you would typically associate with the bidding process?
There actually isn't. There is a statute that permits communities to adopt by ordinance a requirement for competitive bidding. The state does have a statute that requires competitive bidding.
Right, for state government.
And,
Okay.
right, for the state government. But there isn't an equivalent for municipalities that says you must bid competitively. There is a statute that says you may adopt an ordinance that requires competitive bidding. We used to have that as a requirement in our charter until it was taken out in 1997. And this more open system of allowing the Board of Finance to set the rules was put in the charter in place
Right.
of it.
Now, to use a specific example, let's say we're talking about office supplies, reams of paper, to take a more specific example, all right? You go online, you check out W.B. Mason, you check out Staples, you check out all the usual suspects, maybe some regional wholesalers in terms of getting office supplies. If you use a credit card, I would assume you would be entitled to the same protections as a municipality that a consumer would have by using a credit card. So let's say you order 1,000 reams of paper, and WB Mason or whoever you order it from doesn't send it to you, wouldn't your recourse then be through the credit card company to say, look, we ordered this merchandise, we didn't get it, don't charge it to our account? Wouldn't that then obviate the need to sue somebody in a foreign court?
Well, it might, but it still doesn't get you the goods when you need them.
Right, no, I understand that.
I think is a major issue in itself.
Obviously, you wouldn't use that company again, you'd try to find somebody else, but I'm trying to think in terms of what do you do when something goes wrong? If you're talking about everyday goods, you're talking about stuff that's readily available off the shelf from multiple suppliers, I just wonder, is that the type of stuff that we really need to be bidding? Can we just purchase it as you would in the ordinary course of business in the private sector in your private life?
Twig may be able to answer that better on a practical level than I can.
Sure.
I see your point as a legal matter.
Yeah.
A lot of those products we are purchasing from state contract. We don't bid office supplies. We use the state contracts for the office supplies. The town does not bid paper. The schools do. They use considerably more than we do. And in a commodity such as paper, a lot of times it's market timing,
Right.
it goes up, price goes up and down and so forth. But for a lot of those very commonly used products, we really do have contracts set up. Same for a lot of the food for the schools. That's there are consortiums that bid that. We had been using a state contract for that for quite a number of years.
So I guess the next question is, and probably something that Ken would want to know, are we saving money by doing it through the state contract? Is it costing us less or more than if we just did it by retail, just going, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think for the most part, we do okay by using the state contracts. The state contracts, in addition to supplying all the state agencies, are available for use by any political subdivisions, which are the cities and all the municipalities and so forth. And I think when you talk in terms of purchasing power, it's probably the biggest you're going to get within the state of Connecticut. I can't imagine that the town would do better separately through that. So that's...
So you believe we're saving money by going through the state?
I do. I think
Okay,
that's...
fair enough. Thank you.
Sure. Go to Mr. Buckfield.
Thank you, Twig and Eileen. And I would say, first of all, that this is an example of what makes Fairfield a great town, actually, because we had a animated discussion last time. I think I was at the forefront of it. And there were a lot of questions that you obviously hadn't answered at the time. You guys, both of you, went back and did extensive research and produced two excellent pieces that I learned from. So I want to congratulate you for that. Thank you. And go on record to say that I know that you have only the town's best interests at heart and only want to get the best prices possible. And I just want to augment that with some knowledge I have and see if we can come up with some way to do it even better, right? So one question I have for Eileen is that, I read your legal memo, and one of the things you said in there was something along the lines of that since it wasn't this concept of utilizing the internet in any fashion that we might want to use it isn't necessarily mentioned in the state statutes, and then therefore we shouldn't be able to do it. And I found that a little disturbing.
I didn't actually, that's not quite what I said. I said...
I'm paraphrasing.
I said that because we have our charter provision that allows the Board of Finance to set the rules, I'm not so disturbed by that, except that having the state endorse certain very forward-thinking ideas like the reverse bidding or the reverse auction idea. We feel a lot more comfortable that it's been looked at carefully, and there has a level of comfort has been reached with that kind of method.
Eileen, I think Twig had said that was a relatively new development.
It is.
too.
I believe it's been in the last couple of years.
Yes.
And in the absence of that kind of an endorsement of the idea of something like internet purchasing, I feel rather uncomfortable with it.
If Twig was out with a friend at dinner in Norwalk, and after dinner her friend said, let's stop at Best Buy, there is one in Norwalk, so I'm interested in buying a new stereo, whatever. And you said, sure, yeah, I'll walk along with you. And you walked in there and you walked by the computer department, and you happen to walk by we'll use the USB drive thing again, for example, and you happen to look and see on the shelf the exact drive coincidentally that you just put bids out for the other day and you were expecting them back the next day and you saw that they cost $39.99. Yeah, you're a very aware person, so it just sort of registered with you. You said, wow, it's the same thing. You remembered in the back of your mind. And then you came to work when those bids came in, and we got 5 bids, and they ranged from $60 to $100 a piece, right? Would there be any problem with the fact that she had just seen that they were available at a place like Best Buy, probably stronger than anybody that's going to be bidding, stronger financially for us, her saying to herself and then to the suppliers, hey, that's not going to fly. We're going to have to ask you guys to go back and redouble your efforts, or we're going to have to rejigger this or something. I'm not going to pay $60+ per when I know it's $39.99 at Best Buy. I'm just saying, is there any problem with that?
We can
Legally.
always reject all
We
bids
have.
in the interest of the
Okay.
town.
So gathering information, and you've said, by the way, I just want to make clear, it's not a problem, right?
Oh,
Okay.
no, information
Okay.
gathering is
So,
fine.
so what I'd like to do is say, first of all, that we have improved the purchasing policy dramatically with what you did already, right? You've said you want to put the RFPs out in a much broader way, potentially using the town's website, right? And I'm just saying these are the good things that you've done. And also, we've increased the limits in certain cases to give us more flexibility. Okay, so that's all wonderful. Is it possible that we could do some sort of experiment? This is informal to some extent, but I printed out also before I came here, an example of one of these shopping sites. This one happens to be called Shopzilla. They're all silly names like Google and Yahoo. And I just picked a random external hard drive, and it returned the prices for it. It's a Seagate hard drive, and it's $59.99 from Seagate itself. Interestingly, they have their own site. Buy.com, which is a big company, I think they're on the stock exchange, is $70. Dell, Best Buy, Sears, Kmart, Staples, all, these aren't fly-by-night operations, right, have prices. Is it possible that for commodity items that you determine, I want to leave this to your discretion, I'm not trying to make any rules from our desk here, but to the extent where you think something is commoditized, that we make it a experiment for, say, 6 months or a year to go, and I'd be happy to help you with finding some of these sites, and print this thing out, and just be aware, and take a look as an experiment as to what prices we're getting from the traditional bidding method versus the prices that are available, not from fly-by-night operators, but from Amazon and Buy.com and Circuit City's gone, but Sears and Kmart and so forth, and just stick it in the file, so to speak, just so we can have some sort of audit trail, so to speak, of how we're doing. And then maybe a year from now, or whenever it's appropriate, and we revisit this again, you, or in some future date, hopefully not, but in some future date, your successor could report back and say, hey, we've done this experiment, and, Ken was right. We could have saved a fortune by doing it a different way. Or, hey, Ken, interestingly, the bids we got were generally pretty good, and in general, we wouldn't have saved a lot of money. Is there any reason why, and again, at your discretion, because I don't think you should do it for a tractor, right? But I think we should do it for a USB hard drive or toilet paper or stuff that is so obviously commodity items that there's plenty of sources where we could
Yeah.
check the prices.
It would be an interesting experiment, and we certainly can look at doing that and reporting back. I think some of the new things that are in the board, the recommended requirements are that we report back to this board on some interval basis. And so we can certainly add that. We need to be mindful of the amount of time that we devote
Well,
to
I
something like
emphasize
this.
that
And
leave it to your discretion,
and, yeah,
to you to decide. Maybe as an experiment, you just pick 5 items a month, whatever it is. I'm saying, I'm just curious if we can get some data rather than,
Yeah.
having a conversation back and forth that can't back. You see, I don't think this particular example for the wipes is the right way to have gone about the experiment. It proves a point, but I don't think it really is the right.
Well,
way to do
it does.
so,
I did it basically as an experiment for my own. It was, and I chose the baby wipes because they're a pretty common commodity. We use a fair amount of them, and we had bid them back in May. And
Which department is using a lot of baby wipes? Mr. Tetreau, is there something you want to tell us?
Went up substantially in the last year.
But one of, I answered the question. Gee, we really don't ask where every wipe is going.
But who orders them?
The schools use them. We
Okay.
bid them on behalf of the schools. Yeah. We, the top box is the data that I compiled on the actual bids that we received. And there are a couple of interesting things to note there. First off, we got bids from a supplier who was operating in Fairfield at that time. We got bids from a couple of different towns in New York, a couple of different towns in New Jersey, Arlington, Texas, and California. And we didn't do anything differently than with this bid that we do with any of our bids. We advertise it in the Fairfield Minuteman, and we post the bid on our website. And I believe that the suppliers that were outside of the tri-state area probably picked it up from the internet. They set up a Google alert and send in a bid.
Can I interrupt you to ask you?
Yes.
Okay, because I think this is why, I don't want to belabor this, I don't want to drag it all night, but I do want to, it's so different that I do want to make sure we're clear. I'm not talking about bidding. In other words, I see what you, this is not what I'm referring to whatsoever.
No, I know.
Right.
I did it as a price
Right,
comparison.
Right. What I'm interested in is that we arrive at a conclusion that we want to order, somebody help me here with the name of baby wipes, I don't know.
Well, Huggies, I
Huggies,
think,
thank
was one of
you.
them.
So we want to order 20 cases of Huggies wipes, 84 count per pack, no scent, okay? And once you know that, then this is what you're interested in.
Right.
These are sites where you put in the exact product you're looking for, and it returns back to you the prices that are available at a myriad of stores, okay? It's not bidding in any way, shape, or form. You're going out and doing your own work. You're not saying to somebody, I want baby wipes, give me a bid. So what's important to me is just so I understand that or you understand what I'm trying to get at, is that this is, again, for commodity items where we know what we want, right? Which hopefully we do, usually. And at that point, all I'm asking is that we search in this fashion, find out what the prices for that commodity item are, and then stick them in a file so that we can get some sense as to how the bids in the traditional fashion are tracking against the prices that are readily available from places like Amazon, which are obviously highly reliable. They should deliver the next day, no charge, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, for what it's worth, Amazon has a program called Subscribe and Save for commodity items, Mr. Bolito, where if you commit to buy the same items, which I'm sure we do on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, they discounted an additional 15% from their already very cheap prices and no shipping. So it's worth looking into for commodity office supplies and so forth. But
Are you doing a commercial here?
no.
It's an infomercial.
No, it is actually an extremely useful service. But anyway, so I don't know what we can do here. Yeah, I don't know what.
Get into a stock discussion here.
I never brought this stuff. I don't know what we can do here, Mr. Flynn. in
We can't
terms of-
put that in I
No,
wouldn't
but
put it in the
Is there any way
policy,
we could
but
ask, though, Twig to report back to us at her next,
we can. If you would, I'd like one caveat to that, though.
yeah.
Because I do think Ms. Cannelli raises a very valid point, and just so happens I'm doing this at work, which is we have to be careful of the terms and conditions.
We're not buying anything under my,
No. What I'm saying is I also want them, they can't just look at the lowest cost. I think they need to review some of the terms and conditions once you find the lowest cost. Because some of those terms and conditions, as I'm finding in my own business, can be quite onerous.
Yeah.
In terms of restocking charges and things of that sort. So I just think it's not enough to just say we can save so much money.
Sure.
They also need to look at the terms and
I'd
conditions.
be fine with that.
Yeah.
But I just want to know, so we leave it tonight and don't leave them in mystery as to what we're asking
Right.
for.
No, I think it's valid. I would also think, I think the board would want, I'd like us to keep noting how this is progressing with other institutions, be they public or private. And to your point, when they do hit the tipping point that this isn't so cutting edge, that more people are doing it, much like you did with the reverse auction bidding. I'll go to Mr. DeWitt.
Just a comment to Mr. Brockfield. I'm totally in agreement with what you're saying about your zip trot, right? But I don't think it's Twig. I think it's the department head. Because if you look at the new policy, it's the first line is specifically crafted with a couple words saying the best value proposition, right?
Where you're looking?
I'm looking at
First line.
the actual policies,
Oh, yeah, okay.
right? Which means, as we talked about last time, and again, I don't want to do this 3-hour again, but
Right.
there are intangibles here. Ms. Ronald's here, and I bet she'd tell you that you could get a book cheaper on Amazon.com, but you don't get the support and the person coming in doing the computer upgrades and, right. So if we want to do an exercise like that, the IT department, right, would be the guy, the IT director would be the person to say, here's the best analysis, right? We put out bids, you can get it for $39 here, but we're going to buy it for $59. Second thing is that our sole source justification document that's new to here is going to do exactly what you guys want. So if the so in your scenario, the IT director comes back and says, Twig, I got all these bids, and they're $50 to $100, and I walked through Best Buy and got them for $39, he could sit and write a sole source justification to Twig and say, I'm going to go buy 500 of them at Best Buy. I talked to the manager, and he's got them in the back and out. And by the way, the terms and conditions I've run by Ms. Kennelly, they're not onerous, and we're all ready to go. Go do it. You've got an audit trail. You've got documents you can place in front of this board every 6 months, a year, every 2 years to say, wow, we've done this 5 times, and every time we've gone to Best Buy and it's been cheaper, then we can maybe change the policy next time. So I think we've captured this in here. I really do.
I would-
there's-
Okay. Yep, I'm sorry. I think that's a good point, and it does give us the flexibility. The only difference I'd have, and this is not a difference, this is actually an addition or a complement, is that I'm just suggesting that we do an experiment that allows us to see what the actual results would have been if we had done it in a different fashion. So I just want to make clear that
And I'm with you. This could be
Yeah.
a useful
It's
exercise.
fine.
It's not a policy.
It's right, it's fine.
This
I'm not
starts to
arguing for-
do that.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not a
The
policy.
baby
And that's
bonus
not a
starts
policy.
to do that.
Experiment
these
is
4
not a
pages.
policy, but I get. what
No,
you're
I'm
saying.
not asking to change policy.
Right.
I'm not asking to amend the policy, but I do want us to, I think it is reasonable to ask, to come back and give us a comparison with what we did and what we might have done, and to see if it would work out. I just don't know how anybody would have a problem with that, especially at your discretion, on the items you think it might be relevant with.
We can
But
certainly
I
do
think,
that.
yeah, I think the point is, it is the department head working with purchasing, and it isn't just price, it's also the terms and conditions with the price as well. Mr. Mayor, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, the meeting that you guys had, the 3-hour discussion, I had to leave to pick up my kid from school, and tonight I got her a ride, so I have the pleasure of being here for this. But just a couple of quick questions. I understand what Ken's trying to do, but I guess I don't think we want to get involved. I agree with what Twig and Ms. Kennelly are saying, is get involved with buying things from unknown, unrecognized vendors.
Right.
That we don't have any idea what the terms and conditions are. It would take, you'd have to hire an army of people to read those things, to go on forever and ever and ever. I don't think I've ever read one in my life on the internet. But I also heard you say that you do price checking once in a while on the internet. Okay, so there's certain things that you buy, and you might have had to explain this. I had to go out of the room for a minute. Why is it $10 down here and 50 cents up there? Can you explain that? Did I miss that?
can. The first box, the box on top, are the actual bids that we received in May when we bid baby wipes that are used by the schools. And our specification was for a wipe 7.1 by 7.9 inches. We wanted 80 wipes per package. We specified a particular brand, suggested if you have options, give us the price on those. And your price had to include shipping, handling, any other ancillary charges. And what you see here is a cost, what we're buying are an 80-count package of baby wipes from Borough Healthcare Supply at $1.18 per package. What I did last week and this week went to NextTag, which is a shopping site, put in baby wipes, unscented, I got one result. I put in baby wipes, fragrance-free, I got a different result. I started compiling these and discovered a couple of interesting things. I did everything based on an 80 count package. So where you see that line, 80 wipes per package, that's the line to look at in comparison with the 80 wipes per package in the top box. And none of the internet suppliers were as low as the $1.18 that we're paying now. So that was one interesting aspect of the experiment. Another was that I did get different results depending on whether I put in alcohol-free and unscented or alcohol-free and fragrance-free. I found 2 suppliers were on both lists, but there were 5 or 6 suppliers that were only on their own. So it seems there may be silos in the internet where you have to be careful of the search terms that you use. I also noted any shipping charges because they were not included with the product price. And so when you look down, the total cost per package is actually the number to compare to the $1.18 that the town is getting above. As I mentioned before, it's interesting to note that on the traditional bids that we received, they're from several states in the country. On the internet site, I could find 1, 2, 3 suppliers that actually listed a corporation site or location in their About page. I found 1-800 numbers, I found addresses, but I couldn't find any physical presence for most of them. The other thing that I found was that we talked the last time we met about prices fluctuating, and this isn't counting flash sales, which are set up to be flash sales. We're talking about if we publish in a bid document today that the price for baby wipes is $1.18, what I discovered between last week and this is that those prices had changed. If you look at the Huggies, in the center, you'll see that last week, on September 27th, they were $7.79 a package, and today they were $4.99. So we have some significant fluctuations in price, and I'm not sure how you benchmark the bids, traditional bids that you receive against this. So,
Mr. Mayor, do you have any, we're just going on.
Yeah, so basically what you've proven here is that you can go on NetTag and find things that cost 7 or 8 times more than what you're getting on bidding, which seems kind of counterintuitive to me, but I'm going to obviously stay away from NetTag. But if we agree that we don't want to deal with unknown companies, we only want to deal with reasonable companies, and if you're already doing some kind of price checking, you indicated earlier, like if you were to buy something like, the flash drives or whatever you were talking about as the Ken's test item, and you get your bids in, what is the difficulty or the problem with, and I don't know what the category would be, it's just doing some kind of spot checking where you go on some of the biz.com, the sales.com type sites, and you put in, the Johnson's baby wipes or the flash drives and see what comes up, and just use that. And say, whoa, that's a lower price, and then so you reject your bids. You're using, because when you go on Amazon, you go on Yahoo, these are mostly, when you go on commodity items, they're mostly reputable companies that come up. Correct? Known companies.
Who knows?
For the most part. I had another question, though. You mentioned credit cards, like people have credit cards and people go out. Do people purchase things with their credit cards that go through the purchase process?
They're not used as much online as they are in, perhaps for store purchases, the local Poster Hardware, Dailies, or Hemlock Hardware, places like that, Home Depot, buy some of the maintenance folks for auto parts and so forth when we pick them up at the counter.
Right, but but they're not bidding, they're not making purchase decisions. I mean, there's some kind of process that takes place before they can go out and buy things, or, for the most part.
There is,
Yeah,
for the
so-
most part, where folks are buying primarily MRO products that are being purchased from stores locally, plumbing supplies, hardware, things, paint, things of that nature. It is with exception that we'll have a fax machine that breaks down, and we'll need to get one immediately, and someone will take a credit card and go purchase it.
But if I may,
Can we,
they are making purchasing decisions.
Yeah,
Because
can I-
there is no process that says, I need to go buy a belt because I need it for one of the trucks that broke down. So that person is indeed making a purchasing decision with a credit card, and there's no official process that bids that. You're right.
Yeah, presumably those purchases, it's a fair point, presumably those purchases would be under the bidding threshold, you would hope. Now, the question that it does raise, though, is, and not for tonight, but Mr. Hiller, is there a credit card policy?
There is a credit card policy that is administered through my office, through the internal auditor's office, and through the purchasing department. That policy is distributed annually to those people who have credit cards.
Yeah, I remember Ms. Bossie talking to us about that at one time. Can we just get a refresh of that policy?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'll bring in a copy of that.
Yeah.
And most of the cards, one of the advantages with the cards is most of the cards, with probably half a dozen exceptions, have very strict limitations as to what they can be spent on. You know, you can't buy
Right.
restaurants, lodging, travel, things like that.
Yeah, I remember that. I just want to see it.
With, you know, there's probably half a dozen of us that have ones that don't have those restrictions.
Mr. Mayor, does that answer your question, though?
Yeah, yes, because the way Twig first introduced, we'd have people buying all these things all over the place. I got a little concerned.
That was if we did the internet
If we did,
pricing.
yes.
Right, but why would you give anybody more
Exactly,
authority than they currently have? That's,
exactly, yeah. Any other questions, comments? Mr. DeWitt?
My last point, so I'm in total agreement with the policy as it's rewritten, very, very small changes. My only question, it didn't come up last time because we were talking about so many other things, but vouchers. So we could almost construe the conversation that Mr. Mayor is having could be considered under our voucher process, right? Because our vouchers are for miscellaneous payments for other expenses not requiring requisition. So if again, I was going to buy that belt and it cost $20 and I took $20 out of my own pocket because I didn't have a town credit card, through the voucher system, I could come back to you and say, oh, I just spent $20 on a belt, and through the voucher system, I could get my $20 back. Correct?
You can. Vouchers don't go through purchasing. They're directly between the employee and the finance department.
Which is right to my next point. Under $500, a department head can pretty much do whatever they want. If they have, you know, there's a $350 thing I just went out and bought. I can go instruct one of my people to go spend $350 because if it's within my budget. But when we go from 500 to 2,500, the department heads have to go to the budget director. And I guess I don't understand why we would require Mr. White to, if he knows he's got $100,000 in his budget, and he wants to spend, let's call it up to $3,000, because we do have a $3,000 cap that, you know, quote, shall be awarded prudently on the basis of best value, right? Why wouldn't we just have from 500 to 3,000, or the whole voucher system, be controlled by the department head so that they could write or authorize those amount of money without going to the budget director? Because frankly, I don't know what the budget director's doing, other than looking, saying, oh, yeah, there's a line item with money in it.
You may be right on that, on your last point there. She does sign off, she stamps the voucher, and a lot of times, frankly, it's after the fact, obviously. You know, the expenditure has taken place, and we're you know.
But I'm hearing sometimes it's not after the fact, that sometimes it's waylaying the process.
I don't know that that's, there can be exceptions, obviously, but I think in most cases, and I'd have to see specific examples on it, that, but there is a well, it's a weekly review when they come through before the payments are processed, where they're gone through and reviewed in bulk, frankly, from varying departments. That's within the town. The Board of Ed's another.
I'm frankly a little embarrassed to say we spent all this time on this front part, and then the voucher part kind of went over my head because we were spending so much time, but, and I don't want to belabor this process any more than it is, but I think that's something, yeah, and I don't know how we close. I mean, it sounds like we can close it with,
Yeah, Mr.
excuse me,
Hiller, report back.
with Mr. Hiller, but that might be something that we should consider leaving the,
And we can give it an analysis on it, too, as to what has been.
yeah, or the process. If it's not waylaying the process, then I'm all fine, but if it's holding up a process for the department head being able to pay an entity with less than $3,000, it seems, I bet most of our credit cards have at least a $3,000 limit on it.
They don't.
Really?
I don't believe they do.
Okay.
A lot of vouchers are used for educational, for, workshops and forums and conferences and things like that, where you're required to pay in advance and,
I got you.
in order to register, and that may be where the holdup is seen.
Yeah.
It's
All right.
somewhat
So
awkward.
aside from,
Any other questions, comments, concerns on the policy?
aside from that, I'm
One thing,
still,
Tom, if I could.
Yeah,
I
Advocate.
guess I'd just like to see if we could put into the minutes and have some agreement on a date certain that Ms. Holland can come back and report to us on the results of the experiment that we
sure.
seem to have
Can you
agreed
take
upon.
that note, and
I'd like to see if that was in the
we'll
minutes.
follow up on that.
You want to give a date certain?
Let you and I talk, and then we'll set something up on the calendar. Okay?
As long as we get a
Whatever you-
date
yeah.
on the calendar. Okay.
Yep. Mr. DeWitt?
I was just saying 6 months kind of sounds.
I was thinking
Okay.
6 months up, 6, 9 months.
We don't have the reason I'm hesitant to do a date certain is
Schedule.
we don't have a schedule yet,
Right,
so I can't give it a date certain right
Gotcha.
now.
Okay,
So we can put into the minutes 6 months, but we don't have a date certain.
right, and then we'll pick the date.
Right.
Thank you, Tom.
Sure. Any other questions, comments? Ms. Leclerc?
Just one minor one. Have we given this to the auditors at all to make sure it meets the internal control standards and everything that they?
Good question. Mr. Hiller, have the auditors seen this?
They have not seen it. I think, I turn to Ms. Kennelly, I think the charter basically dictates that the Board of Finance is given basically full authority to make this decision under the charter. There are changes within it. I think they're certainly within the charter and they're within statute. We can give it to the auditors. They're going to be here
I
next
would
week.
highly doubt they'll make a comment on it. They're not going to want that level of exposure, I wouldn't think.
I'm sorry?
I would doubt they're going to comment on it because they would
I
not
don't
want
think
that
so.
level of
I
exposure.
don't think they would,
Right,
they've never expressed any concern in the past with our,
right. Right. Any other questions, comments? No?
I'll offer to stay involved in the process as we roll this out to help with the coordination with department heads. If I can help, if I'm not going to be helpful, then I don't need to be involved, but if I can be helpful, I will be.
Thank
I'll
you.
try.
Thank you, Mr. DeWitt. Anybody else have any questions? Mr. Mayor?
I'm sorry, one quick question. Mr. DeWitt's question about the 500 to 2,500 that goes to the budget director, does that mean someone who's a department employee can go to the budget director and it never gets seen by the department head?
The department head, in theory, is seeing, and in fact, should be seeing every transaction that goes through their department. in one form or another. You know, I have to believe we've
Approval by
got controls in
department
place
heads
that
Where's it
that
say
are,
that?
you know, that people are not,
Budget director to make sure it's in the budget.
The above process
Yeah.
plus the
Yeah.
above process approval required by
Yeah.
the department supervisor manager.
Yeah, if you read, Mr. Bolito's right, if you read the Appendix B, if the total claim is 500 to 2,500, the voucher requires the above process, and the above process's approval is required by the department supervisor and manager. Any other questions, comments, concerns on the policy? Seeing none, do I have a motion? Or actually, thank you. I'm going to go to the public on this first. Any questions, comments, concerns? I know we have some department heads here. They spoke last time, but happy to have any comments back. Seeing none, we'll go back to the board. Do I have a motion? Mr. Mayor, do I have a second? Mr. DeWitt? All in favor of approving the bidding requirements as outlined in the document received in our package labeled draft? Opposed? Abstentions? We have one abstention, and everyone else was a yes. We also have noted in the minutes follow-ups on the Brockfeld experiment for
Sounds like a movie from the 70s.
That wasn't a.
for 6
Starring
months,
Gene Hackman.
hence at a date to be named.
He abstained, we're not
Yeah.
naming anything else.
We would, first of all, I'd like to thank Ms. Holland, I'd like to thank Ms. Kennelly.
Thank
I'd
you.
like to thank Mr. DeWitt, and I'd also like to thank the department heads who helped review the policy and worked with Ms. Holland to get this set up. Please report back. Let's not wait 14 years or whatever to review the policy again, particularly with the changes you're seeing in the technology surrounding the function. So I think it behooves us all to take advantage of it. So thank you very much for bringing that to
You're welcome.
closure. I appreciate that.
I
And
have.
good luck.
Thank you. I have one other thing that I can distribute now, or I can give to the chair for distribution at some other point. It's a document that we had prepared during the budget hearings, where we were asked to look at PC purchases, and it came up at the September meeting about, I believe Mr. Kiley mentioned the cost of computers. And I did an analysis on the PCs that we're purchasing, and they are $591 each. So I'm not sure where the $1,200 number came from, but I'm not finding any PCs that we purchased for that amount. But I can distribute this later.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right.
Roll up the sole source document, right? Are you ready to?
Yes, I have everything. I have a couple of forms that I've prepared. I have a rollout program for department heads. I will be talking with Mr. Tetreau to try and get a slot in his next department head meeting to see if there's an opportunity there to brief department managers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is to hear, consider, and act upon a request from the Board of Education for a bond appropriation in the amount of $901,467 to fund a roof warranty extension program at Sherman, North Stratfield, Osborne Hill, Riverfield, and Holland Elementary Schools, tabled from a quarterly review meeting of July 27, 2011. Question, why did we just receive the bond appropriation language now?
bond appropriation, when the package was mailed, was not available. I apologize, it was available on Friday and should have been, but it is a standard bond appropriation, bond resolution.
Since this item's been here since July, I
There
failed to
is,
see why it wasn't available. in,
The key thing in this is that the proposal was for 10 years, and, but it's standard language.
All right, welcome, Mr. Cullen. Before we get started tonight, this project has been like a ping pong ball. And it's gone back and forth. I guess it went to the Board of Selectmen under the prior administration before Mr. Tetreau was appointed. It came before us. We referred it back to the TFC to do a report. And we had also asked that the first Selectman have the opportunity to review it, given some of the other capital items that were confronting his young administration at the time, right? So I wanted to follow up with Mr. Tetreau on what's happened there. I also want to follow up with Dr. Title as to the time frame of this, as to when a decision needs to be made. And I want to make sure we give this a fair hearing with all the facts in place at the time. So I'm going to ask Mr. Tetreau, can you come on up on this item? And because it was, when we tabled this, one of the things we did ask for is that the Board of Selectmen have the opportunity, and the first Selectman have the opportunity to take a look at this, particularly in light of the Facilities Commission report, which wasn't available when they actually passed the project on to us. At least the written document wasn't available at the time. So, Mr. Tetreau, what did,
From the top, the Board of Selectmen has not reviewed this, given our meeting schedule and the items that have been on our agenda during that time period.
okay. So this is not yet, it was originally passed quite some time ago.
And as I believe, as
Yeah.
you and I were talking, we had a discussion of the process here, and
Yeah.
this has been anything but linear.
Right.
I think it went from the Board of Selectmen to the Board of Finance, as I remember.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, was it our April meeting or one of the last
Yeah.
meetings that I was on the board? We bumped it to the TFC, as you mentioned. They looked at it for a while. It came back as coming back to this board because that's where it left the linear process, if
Right.
you will. In looking at the TFC report, one of the recommendations in there is that, we refer to the TFC to kind of manage this from that standpoint. Frankly, I'm not totally comfortable with that overall, just because of the TFC seems to have an awful lot on their plate. They've gotten involved in some building projects. They're also having a tough time for scheduling. They certainly have the expertise to do it,
Yep.
but I'm not sure that would be the call. And so I think that, and then the second piece is, as a Board of Selectmen, we just haven't looked at it.
Okay. Dr. Title and Mr. Cullen, what's the time sensitivity to this? And
Time sensitivity is based on the roofing manufacturer of the product and the agreement in their contract. Originally, when we first talked with them and this came about, they said within 6 months of the first roof warranty that's going to expire, which would have put us making a decision in August, which is passed. But we've had, I have staff here tonight to help me explain and help answer questions. As we talked with them and told them the favorableness of this project and the approval process we had to go through, they've been waiving some of those delays.
okay, Dr. Title, what's your
Yeah, I mean,
stance
we've got
on-
another process, that's another process thing, right, here, because we basically been waiting to get on the agenda for the Board of Finance. We've made no effort to get on the agenda of the Board of Selectmen, quite frankly, because we thought we left it here.
Well, we were pretty clear, I
so-
mean, when we took this up a couple of meetings ago, that we
Yeah.
did want it to go back. I mean,
Right.
we were pretty clear we wanted them
Right.
to take a look at it in light of the train station, in light of,
Right.
we had the capital planning summit. So, I mean, it shouldn't have been incumbent upon you, don't take me the wrong
Right,
way.
I understand.
To go back to the Board of
Right.
Selectmen. That's not what I'm inferring. I'm just trying to,
Well, I think obviously there's two components, more than two components to this. One is the actual repair work on the roofs that will extend the useful life of the roof.
Right.
That is, to some extent independent of the warranty issue.
right.
Right? So even if there were no warranty part to this, might be
Right.
wise to expend the funds on the repairs, because if it will extend the useful life, then we don't have to spend millions to fix them. So I think in that regard, there may be a time sensitivity on the warranty part, but we still, even if we miss that, we still may want to consider the repair part to this.
When could you do that work? Would that be a summertime project because of the,
Some of the work would be done during the summer. Some of it would be critical to any flashing repairs and things that could be done other times. But anything done with hot tar, we need approval from the town officials, and they would want to be done with no students in the buildings.
Thank you, Dr. Title. Do we have anybody from the TFC here? Mr. Bricks, can you come on up? Are you? Can you give us your thoughts on this? Because I know you were part of the team that reviewed it. And welcome back. It's Old Home Week.
Yeah. When I was on the Board of Finance, we were considering a re-roof of the Fairfield High School roof, and I came around and did the same thing. So this time I'm strictly here. I made sure I dressed not like a finance guy, but like a contractor. But anyway, so I expressed myself many times when this was being reviewed. I'm not sure that I'm speaking for everybody on the TFC. So maybe I'm just speaking for myself. On the TFC, I'm probably the only one with any depth when it comes to roofing. You have people from all walks of life on the TFC, and I think I have the depth of 10 years of very intensive, being responsible for roofs in the company that I work for. Probably put on 1 million square feet of roof, if not more, over a period of 9 or 10 years. And I did a little investigation with the people who today still are doing this in the company that I work. Are they extending warranties for built-up roofs at the end of life? And basically, nobody has. Those people who are responsible said, no, we just don't do it. We maintain the roofs. We inspect them periodically. And if they need repair, we repair. Usually, there's a leak and somebody goes up, and then they take a look at the rest of the roof and recommend some additional work, and then it's quiet for many years. So I was kind of surprised by this very, very proactive program of actually not only doing repairs, but upgrading all the flashings, and getting the manufacturer to extend the warranty for, I believe, 5 years, right? Correct? So I sort of thought it through, and it's not typical. It's fairly unique to go back at the end of the life of the roof to extend the warranty. Generally, in the beginning of the job, you worry about catastrophic failure where the system you chose wasn't put in correctly. So in the beginning of the life, but then once you've had the roof and it's performing well, you just want to maintain it. And at the opportune time, when you're doing other renovations, usually you re-roof the building. So this kind of programmatic approach to, get a warranty, and the warranty usually behind the company, there's some insurance company, or the company has the financial strength. There are legal documents, the warranty that goes along with it. There's a lot of outs in the built-up roof industry. There isn't a good track record of the companies standing behind the product. They generally find every which way to not, this is just from experience. Now, people may have other experiences, but it's difficult, particularly after many years, where you've owned the roof, you maintain it, and you go back to have them come out and actually spend some money, other than they will come out to inspect the roof to make sure that they cover their liability. And so in any case, what I'm trying to, the alternate approach here, what is the alternate approach? Is that we do the more conventional approach. We have somebody come out, inspect the roof, and if they find some problem with the roof, they go out and fix it, maintain it. And don't do this wholesale program, because I feel we're not going to get a 5-year life if it doesn't have a 5-year life. So the roof now has a 5-year life. It has 5 years to go. I don't believe the manufacturer would give us a 5-year warranty and put themselves at risk unless the roofs are in pretty good shape currently. Now, I did not go out on the roof. I just want to state, I didn't go inspect it personally. So the warranty part of this kind of bothers me in that we're turning over the control of the decision-making to please the manufacturer, who will try to assure themselves that they will not have to come back and spend any money. And they are spending our money, to protect themselves. The motivations don't seem to be aligned with us being thrifty, with taking the appropriate amount of risk on an old roof. I'd like to see we have a maintenance, preventive maintenance contractor inspecting the roofs, and they know where the problem areas are, and they attend to these problem areas and should continue. The roofs are in very good shape, the 5 roofs that are being proposed for the extension, that they continue doing what they're doing in terms of just maintaining the roof. I believe the cost will be substantially less. Now, we have some roofs that are in much worse shape that are not in this program, and maybe allocate the money to actually extend the life of the roofs that are in poor condition instead of extending the life of roofs that are in good condition.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Briggs, how you doing?
How you doing?
Good to see you. I'm a little bit confused. Just as a matter of response to your question, Mr. Chair, is there a time requirement? According to the documents that we got in our package, the manufacturer requires that the roofs be completed that the work be done within 6 months of August 11, or 6 months after the current warranty is up, for them to do it. So that's the time requirement, 6 months after. And the $901,000 is, as we all know, is $885,000 for the repair work and $15,000 for the warranty. So the warranty piece is a small piece of this, but it is maybe. But the little confusion on my part is the $885,000 repair, the $885,000 worth of repair work that is currently being anticipated. Is that because it needs to be done, which is what I understood before, or is it because we need to do it to get the warranty? Mr. Collins?
I'm actually confused myself because full Board of Ed approved this project. The full TFC approved this project. We came to the Board of Selectmen. It was asked to go to the TFC.
Yeah,
We
they
came to
issued
the
a
Board of
report.
Finance.
Right.
But the approval process was done. We brought some people with us tonight to talk about some of the details behind this. I wasn't expecting Mr. Bricks to do a presentation against the project. So
To be clear,
But-
we asked the TFC to be here to just discuss it. I wasn't
I didn't know
aware
that.
of what he was going to say.
Well, I didn't know that either, and we
Yeah.
handed out a package that went to the full Board of Finance. We've been working on this project very hard over a year. Did a lot of presentations to the full TFC, did a lot of inspections on the roofs, and it seems to
So-
be taking a different turn.
So,
Well-
but to answer my question
Right.
directly, is the repair work being done for the purpose of extending the warranty? Or is the repair work being done because
It's
the roofs
needed.
need to be repaired?
They needed to be repaired.
And that was done based upon an analysis by Tech America or somebody like that?
Tecta America is the roofing preventive maintenance contractor that was awarded the contract for all the school roofs for this fiscal year.
And the roofs are not currently leaking?
Yes, they are.
They are currently leaking, so,
Some of them are, right?
okay, so
They are.
Yeah.
okay, well, that's, I asked my questions, I got my answers.
Mr. Brockville?
Just a quick question for Tom, I guess. In this proposal, there's a, as Bob just said, $885,000 approximately to do repairs, and then $15,000 for warranty. So, and that warranty extends the coverage for repairing 5 different school building roofs for 5 years?
Correct. It turns out it's the same manufacturer, Johns Manville, for those roofs. You also need to understand that it's not the entire school. Every school building has multiple roofs. It's only the ones that have the Johns Manville product on it.
So going back, I'm sorry, your name?
Saul.
Saul, thank you. I wasn't on the board when you were here. So what I'm starting to understand, in other words, $15,000 is nothing to insure 5 roofs, even if some, if I'm reading this right, some of the stuff is excluded, right? So it's obvious that, as Saul was saying, that the $885,000, of which I'm sure some of it's necessary, is really basically being driven by the insurance company telling us that if you do all of this stuff, we'll throw in a warranty for 5 years for $15,000. Is that a fair I mean, it sounds like it has to be by definition. If we didn't do the $885,000, would they sell us a warranty for 5 years for $15,000?
Probably not.
No, obviously not, right. If
But
we
it's
did-
based on the
If we did
roof,
$400,000 of work, would they sell us a warranty for $15,000?
I don't know that. I don't know that answer. This all came about because of the good work they heard we were doing with the PM program.
But I just think that what I'm hearing, and I apologize to some extent because this is a tough one to come in on the back end, and I respect your point that you guys worked on it for a long time, is that it sounds to me like almost by definition, the expenditure of $885,000 is being driven by the insurance companies, by the, whoever it is that's providing the, a warranty, their demands in order to be willing to then, I mean, if you have a car that's got problems, right, you drive it into the shop and the guy says, well, if you spend $8,000 fixing it, it's going to be, he's thinking to himself, I'm going to fix it, then I'd be happy to sell you a warranty for another 3 years for, you know, for $500, right? He wouldn't sell you that warranty if you didn't do the $8,000 of repairs. That's obvious. So I think it goes back to Bob's question. I think it's a critical question. Do we need the $885,000 of work? I mean, if we do, I'd like to hear about it. Or are we being driven on $885,000 of work by a desire to buy a $15,000 warranty?
And to your point, and Mr. Cullen raises a valid point about the TFC being here. But I want to go back to something because page, and I think it goes directly to what Mr. Mayor and Mr. Brockville were just saying. If you read page 3 of the TFC report, which is all we have.
Hang on, Tom. The TFC.
Yeah. Right. And I just want to go to the last 3 paragraphs because this is what confused me. And I think it's, maybe I'm misinterpreting it, or maybe it is consistent with some of what Mr. Briggs is saying. But it says roof leaks have been a significant problem in Fairfield, and the TFC encourages a balance between preserving these roofs to avoid leaks while limiting the costs. And then it says a unanimous concern of the TFC is the concept of warranty extension eligibility as the motivation for excessively costly repairs and upgrades to achieve a relatively short-term extension on the serviceability of these specific roof coverings. It is a concern that the manufacturer refuses to extend the program to a roof of the same age and material at DeWitt. Required repairs for this program far exceed normal roof maintenance budgets. Total repairs to these 5 roofs over the past 2 years is less than $55,000, and the warranty extension applies to only portions of these roofs. The TFC endorses a plan to select an independent architectural or engineering firm specializing in roofing to analyze the condition of these roofs and provide an estimate to provide repairs needed to extend the serviceability of the period for 5 to 10 years. DeWitt School may be included in this plan, which I guess it's currently not. The analysis should not be driven by warranty requirements, which I think is what Mr. Mayor was getting to, but this engineer or architect may work in cooperation with Johns Mansfield to achieve eligibility for the warranty extension at a more reasonable investment. The TFC recommends that the oversight of the full warranty project or the abbreviated architectural analysis as selected by the appropriate town bodies should rest with the TFC, which goes to an earlier comment that Mr. Tetreau had alluded to. So I don't know how this, Mr. Cullen, it goes to your earlier point. Are they really endorsing the full project here, or are they saying that this, that they're uncomfortable with it for the very reason that Mr. Mayor said and Mr. Brockfeld just said? Well, it seems qualified. Mr. Bricks, is that fair, or what's the?
Yeah, I mean, what you read now is what I recall, and we were grappling with the idea that we want an expert to look at the roofs, determine the scope of work, and not be bound by the warranty. If we please the Johns Manville, then fine, but that's a separate decision. We just want a professional to go out there and look at it. We pay him a small amount of money per roof to go out and do an inspection, and then recommend the repair work that's needed for that specific roof, and not be concerned with what the manufacturer wants to extend the roof. Keep the control in this town. And the decision as how far we want to go, whether we want to take a risk with some decision, it's just here we're making a decision for approximately $1 million, and then just turning it over and turning the control over to a large degree to the manufacturer for the sake of getting the warranty. To me, the warranty is not important at all at this stage. It's just, you're concerned with it in the, in the early years, like I said, for catastrophic failure, but at this point, we're just dealing, what if this roof doesn't last as long? Well, it's just time value of money when you're going to, whether you do it now or you do it the next year. And we've made decisions to live with a roof another year and another year until it's an opportune time to schedule it and patch it until we're ready. Why not continue doing what we're doing? Why change gears?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bricks. I just want to make sure we're reading the report appropriately. Mr. Cullen, that's all I'm trying to do, because I was confused by it. And I think others were as well. I'm going to go to Mr. DeWitt, and then I'll go back to you, Mr. Mayor. So go ahead.
It's funny how we all read the same things, interpret it different. I read this a couple days ago, the TFC report, and I got the feeling they were not endorsing it.
Right.
At the beginning, it says, well, we have to do some work, but at the end, it pretty clearly states that we, at the very least, as Mr. Bricks has alluded to, we need to get somebody up there to look at the roofs, right? When we were here last time talking about this, though, my notes I took was, one of the things that was, what is covered? Because every time we talk about roofs, it's the flashing's bad, the underlayment's bad, right? And thank you for providing. I look at the Johns Manville, excuse me, and it says, number 9, building envelope and structure, including but not limited to masonry, curtain walls, windows, caulkings, flashings, wood blocking, decking. I'm looking at the wrong thing. I'm sorry. It literally says somewhere in here that everything has to be sound. Here it is, building envelope, masonry, metal flashings, wood blocking. So, as I was worried about the last time, they're going to walk in and say, oh, flashing's bad, not covered. So, as Mr. Bricks is saying, I don't see what this warranty program is buying us. And if it's driving an $885,000 bill, there's something really wrong here. I'm not feeling any better about this than I was on July 27th. Because for $15,000, I mean, it seems like not a lot of money, but if it's driving maintenance costs to get us back to that, this warranty thing, I don't think is buying us anything. all we ever hear about when we talk about roofs is underlayment and, again, flashing, stuff like that. We never hear, oh, the roofing material is bad, let's go replace it. This is like a sweet deal for Johns Manville, if you ask me. So I just don't get it. I don't understand the 885. I'm totally not on board with the warranty extension. I just don't understand what that's buying us as a town. And I think the TFC brings up a good point. We should at least look at what the requirements of the warranty, which I don't think you agree with either, is driving back into the price of the final project.
Yeah, I'm
I've
going to
got
go to Mr. Mayor, and then I'll go to Mr. Polito and Mr. Brown.
Comment.
Did you?
I just have one quick.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I
It's
miss
okay.
you?
No, Mr. Mayor's going to defer, yield just one
Yield the
quick
floor.
question. Just to further understand this a little better, Tom.
Well, can I respond to the last?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Yeah,
comment
please
I didn't
do.
get to. I want to disagree with you because for the past 3 years, I've been telling this board all of the rubber membrane work we've been doing that has been covered by warranty, and the dollar amount each year. We've saved $60,000 one year, 45 the next. There has been multiple times when the manufacturer's been called in and has made good on repairs and problems with the roofs in the district. And I've reported that to this board many times.
Thank you, Mr. Cullen. You're right, you have.
A question just for understanding, who, and this gets to, I think, what Mr. DeWitt was mentioning a little bit, who determined the scope, I think, Tetreau, the scope
Yeah,
of the work?
I brought them here tonight. I mean, they're the backbone of this project.
And who would be doing the
Have
work?
them come up.
And who would we be bidding this work out to?
Yes.
So John's Mansville would not be doing it?
They have nothing to do with
They have
it.
nothing, okay, I just wanted to ask that question.
Okay. So the 885 isn't based on a firm bid then, is that correct?
It's an estimate from Tech to America.
Got it. Okay. We go to Mr. Polito and Mr. Brown, and then I'll come back to you because you yielded.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For Mr. Cullen, we're talking about 5 schools: Sherman, North Stratfield, Osborne Hill, Riverfield, and Holland Hill, correct? That's what we're talking about here. Now, what I've noticed is that, according to the TSC report, Osborne Hill certainly seems to have suffered the lion's share of leaks because they suffered 29 leaks and repair costs have totaled $25,000 at this point. So, looking down the other schools, it's various numbers of leaks. So, best case scenario, if we do the repairs you're recommending, how much more life are we going to get on, for example, specifically Osborne Hill School?
We're hoping 10 years.
You hope in 10 years, right? Now, with the other schools, are you looking at different expected life extensions with those schools, or are you looking at about 10 years with all of them?
Other schools in this program or
program,
other schools
yes.
in the district?
In this program
Other schools in this
particularly.
program would be 10 years.
Okay. So you're confident that if you do the repairs you're looking to do, let's put the warranty piece of it aside for a moment, but if you do the repair program you're talking about, that you're going to get 10 more years out of all of these roofs.
Correct.
Now,
And can I
here's the-
also mention, the warranty piece is very important to the school district. You may not remember, but for us to get state funding, state reimbursement on a roof project, we have to prove that the warranty is expired. Otherwise, they don't look at it, they don't reimburse us.
Okay. Now, the big problem that we've had with the school roofs is that all of them seem to have been done at the same time in 1991. What are we going to do going forward to make sure that that doesn't happen again? Is there a plan to, once we do the repairs, if we approve this, that you're going to stagger doing new roofs on these schools? I mean, is that part of the vision
There is
here?
a long-term plan. Unfortunately, we haven't been following it because of the TFC being overloaded, the delays on the Fairfield Ward High School roof, and the McKinley roof repairs, and several others. Dwight School roof is mentioned in the TFC report. That was on our list for the 12-13 school year. That's going to get bumped out 2 or 3 more years. The roof repair projects are taking too long, so they are going to start piling up.
Now, let me ask another question along those lines. At what point does it make sense to talk about, rather than repairing these roofs for 10 years to get 10 more years out of them, and then still having the problem where they're all reaching the end of the useful life at the same time? Does it at some point make sense to look at, Osborne Hill seems to be the one that's leaking the most, to look at replacing that roof now, and then systematically over the next 10 years replacing each of those 5 schools, not repair, but replace the roofs, because it's going to come due eventually. There's going to come a point 10 years from now when these roofs cannot be repaired anymore, correct?
Correct.
So does it make sense from a financial standpoint and just a building planning standpoint to look at, all right, we got 5 schools in this program. Osborne Hill seems to be the worst. Let's replace the roof at Osborne Hill and then systematically go through the rest of the schools and replace the roofs rather than spending almost $1 million on repairing them for 10 years and then having all those roofs coming due again anyway. You know what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying. The problem is that those 5 are only on that list because they're a Johns Manville product.
Right.
There's other schools that need to filter in between those getting done.
Right.
Dwight Elementary School and several others. So we're going to be piling up roof repairs and replacements that are going to be overextending what the town wants to spend on renovation and additions at the schools, normal upkeep, and roofs.
Let me ask you a ballpark figure. I'm not holding you to it, but to replace the roof at a school like, say, Osborne Hill, which is a pretty stock, mid-'60s school, similar to Holland Hill and a few other schools. If we were to completely replace that roof, ballpark, what are we talking about for costs?
Sale has that.
Sure. Okay, sure. Okay. So I'm kind of getting to what I'm looking at, which is, does it make sense to start replacing these roofs systematically? Is it more cost-effective to do that than to spend $1 million on repairing when you're going to get 10 years?
No, because the cost replacement is a lot
Far
more.
greater than $1 million. All right, that's what I want to get to.
Far
Okay.
greater.
How far greater is what I want to find out from Sal. So at this point, I'll yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Go to Mr. Brown, and then we'll go to Ms. Leclerc.
Okay, so it's, what we have, it's obvious these leaks have to be fixed. I mean, they're leaking, there's 29 leaks at Osborne. So every time it rains, we have 29 leaks
And rising.
and rising. If you could just go to this warranty extension cost summary page that you handed out. My question is, I'm still not sure exactly what we're doing to the roofs. Are we patching? Are we tearing up the roof and putting new roof down?
I'd ask that Mike Shuttler come up and Sal Morbido. They can give you a lot of the detail.
Yeah, because
they're the ones that walk the roofs.
All right. And the other question I have, and maybe it's for him as well, is I don't understand why we're paying for a warranty. If we're doing the work, why isn't there a warranty?
Because it's an extension.
To answer Mr. Bolito's question, Osborne Hill would probably be around $1.2 million to replace completely, based on TFC numbers that we were given for the senior center repair, if you recall from last year.
Right.
TFC came up with square foot pricing. If I extend that out, it'd be a $1.2 million project. A lot of questions that have been asked are in this handout that we had.
Why don't you walk us
you.
through it? Mr. Brown, did you get an answer to your question? Not yet.
We were bringing this gentleman up, I
Yeah.
think, to,
Let's answer Mr. Brown's question, and then I'm going to go through this, because I think it's fair to let you guys go through it.
And I'm sorry if you can repeat the question.
the work that's being done. On this warranty extension cost summary that you handed out.
Okay.
So you have Sherman, North Stratfield, Osborne, Riverfield, and Holland Hill. And then you have the total of 156,000. I take it that's square feet?
Yes.
Is that how much, is that what we're repairing? Are we repairing 156,000 square feet of roof?
That's the gross area of the roof. The repairs that would be happening are enhancements to flashing and edge conditions on the building, and I'll let Mike go through more of the details.
We'll get into why we looked at this later, but to answer your question directly, the areas that we're going to be fixing are the primary critical areas that we see the leaks in. They're the movement points of the roof. Through expansion, contraction, we got a lot of different movement, different coefficiencies, brick, steel, roofing material. The primary points of failure are the flashings, the edge metal details, the drains, and the penetrations. The work that'll be done in these budget numbers are from the flashings, the drains, the edge metals, and what it does is bring those back to a serviceable condition to extend the life. The field of the roof itself is performing, but it's exceeding its intended service life. So if we bring these flashings, and you keep bringing up, we keep hearing about flashing, that's where they're going to leak. We repair these now, and we keep the big part, the field of the roof, in good condition, we're going to be able to extend the life of that. I guess, can I explain why we looked at these?
Sure.
Your portfolio is the most critical thing. This gentleman asked, why not just replace this? And we do several school districts, and what we look at is managing your assets. And in managing your assets, you've got a lot of capital projects coming up on your plate. Ward High School, we've got to get something done with that. It's a money pit for you right now, and it isn't helping any part of the school.
Meaning the roof.
The roof on it, yes. And that's been going on
5 years.
5 years, 6
6
years.
years.
We've been providing data and looking at, and we keep pushing this out. So this program came up, and Sal's did a pretty good analysis. I actually like this bar chart that he came up with that shows the amount of roofing that needs to be done. There was a problem that a lot of these are coming up at the same time. However, to go out and say, yes, let's do that, that would be good if you only had these schools. But you've got Ward High School, you're looking at that on a 3 or 4 year project. You're looking at Ludlow High School. That roof is going to need some additional work. DeWitt is one that is definitely going to need some work, and it was excluded from this because the condition of the roof historically, what we're seeing with the manufacturers, has been that it will not qualify just based on the performance of it, let alone a roof inspection from the manufacturer. So the reason that these are here is because it's a much broader picture. We recommend doing this to manage the portfolio in a position where you were talking about all at once. Well, you got all these coming up at once. You also have Ward and Ludlow, DeWitt, just off the top of my head. There's the back part of Hill.
Well, we have it laid
Mill
out,
Hill
Mike. It's,
that needs to be done. So there is a long-term plan for the entire portfolio. You're only looking at a synopsis of it. So the basis of this decision is not just on why are we doing this, but let's look at the broad picture of what's in your portfolio and what capital you're going to be looking at in the near future. You need to spread that out as well.
if you look at the, originally, several years back, there was a report done by Hoffman Architects where they studied all our roofs, did a roof condition report, and they also came up with a proposed roof replacement plan. And we've done some roof replacements, notably a section on Riverfield, 2 roof sections before the large expansion project at Stratfield. We've done those. There's a
long-term plan.
And they're in our
We use this booklet to build our long-term plan.
But this plan, looking straight at, we have a roof, let's replace it. Forget about the problem that we have 8 roofs that were done on 8 different schools, all in 1991. They're all 20 years old, they're nearing the end of their life. Equivalency on that is, I gave you a chart that would show what replacement would cost against our proposed plan, and it's near the end of that handout. It's in the last page. In comparison, for the next 5 years, and this roof improvements that we're talking about tonight is part of that, we're looking at a capital expenditure, we'll round it off to $3.5 million. That's these roof improvements we're talking about now on 5 schools to ensure and extend their lives 5 to 10 years. Next capital item would be shingled roofs on APRs at 4 different schools. The following year would be the DeWitt replacement. After that, Mill Hill, Tomlinson, and then going further, Ludlow High School over a 2-year period. part of the reason to look at that is if you took our entire portfolio and just did a straight line analysis on it and said, we want to have a continual replacement of our roofs over a certain period of time. If you want to pick 20 years, because that's what a warranty is these days. If you wanted to do that, you would have to replace close to 59,000 square feet worth of roof a year. Using the cost that TFC gave us for roof replacement, that would be almost, it would be over $1.5 million a year capital to do roof replacement. Unfortunately, we didn't put our roofs up in a straight line fashion. We got a big clump. So how do we improve? This proposal is to improve what we have that's good. Move it down the line to make sure it's not a problem, doesn't come up as a mystery or an emergency while we're attacking something else that we know in a couple of years is going to be fully aged and ready for that full replacement. So that was the idea behind it. Overall, this project, compared to what Hoffman laid out for us, is substantially less over a 5-year period. It's $3.5 million compared to almost $11 million what the architects came up with 5-6 years ago as a roof replacement plan. So we think it's very fiscally prudent to do this and protect the assets that we have that are performing well and make them continue to perform well while we're taking care in the next few years those critical items.
I'm going to go to, Mr. Brown's not done with his question, then I'm going to go to Mr. Bolito.
And, I mean, that all makes perfect sense. But let me ask, have you been on top of the roofs?
I walk your roofs quite often.
You do, okay. So, again, just back to the original question before I move forward, the warranty. Somebody does work on the roof. They fix what you're asking them to do. Why isn't the warranty included in the work? In other words, why are we paying for a warranty? Because I work in facilities, 477,000 square feet. Okay, we break our roof up into 10 sections. And we work on about 40-some-odd thousand square feet every year or so, and every 15 to 20 years, like you said, you got to look at the whole thing. You look at that whole section. And when we bring someone in, we go out to bid, and that's the other thing. I don't know why we have, who's the consultant that we're paying? Who's the consultant? I'm jumping here, but
You're jumping the gun. We had to come forward with a proposal. Mr. Shuttler helped us out with the budgetary numbers that are included in your packet to define this project. We have not.
Are you the consultant? Are you the consultant?
He's our consultant at this point for getting these numbers together to get these budgetary
But who are we
numbers.
paying $5,687 to Sherman?
Once this is approved, this budget includes to have a specialist for roofs come in, architect, Hoffman Architects or some other engineering firm that specializes in building envelopes, to come through and analyze these buildings, much like Mr. Brick said. This might have been heavy. We might not have to do, let's say there's 1,000 linear feet of perimeter flashing that's included in the quotation. I'm just throwing out round numbers. The engineer would work with the manufacturer within their program and say, you know what, this meets your criteria, this section, and we're going to eliminate 200 feet, so you're lowering the cost of the project. This is an upside cost on this project. The reason why warranties are important to us is that we work our warranties. We, as Mr. Cullen said, we get a lot of money from our warranties. Overall, comparing warranty costs on a square foot basis to our maintenance costs on a square foot basis, we pay about 10.5 cents a square foot maintenance costs across 1.2 million square feet worth of roofing. We're bringing in 4.8 cents per square foot on those roofs that are warrantied. That's how much return we're getting from our warrantied roofs. And it's not the ones that are young, it's the ones that are old. Our portfolio is old. One section of Ludlow roof that expired a few years ago, we received warranty money 2 weeks before the warranty expired, a 20-year warranty. We got it at 19 years, 11 and a half months. We got warranty money. So it's not just when the roof's young. If you maintain your building, you can call in a warranty down to the last day.
See, we get 20-year warranties. So I'm wondering, and it's part of the price. Now, the warranty, again, is not the real big issue here. I have a bigger issue, and I'm glad you're here, you can explain it to me, on the budget estimate of it just takes Sherman of $162,000. So the work needs to be done, right? But where are we getting these estimates?
These estimates are based on looking at your entire portfolio and trying to come up with some solutions to spread out some of your major capital expenditures. You're correct. When I sell a roof to a commercial account, I include that a warranty fee. Right now, we have it broken out so you can see it, because this is a special program. And the manufacturers in the industry, if you're involved in roofing, I'm sure that you've seen, the technology in roofing has changed dramatically in the last 20 years. And there's new technology out there, there's new things. The other thing is right now in the market, it's down. People need to squeeze, the roof costs are so expensive, you need to squeeze every nickel and dime you can out of your roofs. So what they're doing is going back and looking at the roofs that have been installed properly, haven't failed in the first couple of years. They've performed well. People have done preventative maintenance, and they've taken care of the roof. They're willing to come back out and take care of the problems that are known to fail, the flashings, the curb flashings, the drains, the perimeters, and then take on some exposure on their own to extend the life of the warranty. Now, the warranty is very critical because, like Sal said, you are one of my best towns for using your warranties. You've invested a lot of money into some online asset management programs that actually notifies the manufacturers directly, which is part of your warranty documents. And as soon as one of your custodians reports a leak, they do it online, the manufacturer is notified immediately, and a warranty ticket is generated to get somebody to come out to inspect that and make the proper repairs under warranty. If it's a non-warranty issue, you exclude it. Masonry, windows, metal, things that the manufacturer did not install or did not manufacture, they don't cover those, and we wouldn't expect them to. But the things that are covered under warranty, workmanship, material failures, seams, laps, base flashings, they do cover, and you folks do a fantastic job of getting those warranty dollars paid for. What the warranty is meant to do, in my opinion, from looking at it from a management standpoint of a portfolio, is eliminate your exposure. Right now, as your portfolio ages, you have a tremendous amount of exposure. And if you have a catastrophic failure, because when the roofs start to go, they go quick. We get water in the system, it can go very rapidly, especially at a senior age and when it's up there. So if we have a catastrophic failure and you don't have a warranty to protect you on the majority of your portfolio, you have a lot of exposure. So you're basically, that warranty is an insurance policy. It's protecting you against catastrophic failure for that period of time. But I would ask you to look at the whole portfolio. This is not just, you're in a unique situation than most towns. You did a lot of roofing in one block of time, and now we have some other aged things that need to get taken care of, and these are coming due at the same time. And so what this program is meant to do is work with the manufacturer. You've been doing a good job on your roofs, maintaining them, but push that off, like Sal was saying, to a point where you can put it in the budget again. In a perfect world, you just replace them and everything would be good. But you've got other projects that are going to take up your capital.
Yeah, I
And at this
understand.
economic time, capital is king. So, I mean,
Just-
it's critical.
I know you got to move on, but I just want to go back again, and I'm with you. But do you have customers that are, private?
We're the largest roofer in the nation.
Right,
In
okay.
Connecticut, we have private, public.
Private. Do you see a big difference in quotes and prices in private and municipality?
Especially right now, yes. In in the maintenance end, in the maintenance and management of portfolios, you're in the toughest situation, and the reason is you're subject to public bid. And with public bid, sometimes you get what you pay for, and there's been some projects that have been done that got value engineered, let's say, and probably weren't the best value for you, and we've experienced some challenges with. So-
Okay. But the question I have is, again, and then I'll move on, is, would you call it value engineered?
Value engineering.
Which means, what exactly?
They're
Cutting
going to
corners.
Cutting
save
corners?
costs.
make it the most economical for them as possible.
Best value proposition.
But the work, and let's just stick with Sherman, the work that we're doing, or even Osborne, okay, the work we're doing for Osborne, for $218,000.
Yep.
The question is, is that a price that someone that you have as a client in private industry would pay for that work? It seems high.
This is based on a budget number that we were asked, we're trying to work things out. This information is based upon what we typically see for the requirements from the manufacturer. And as Sal's made comment to, these are high, these are worst-case scenario, but we want to make sure we're not coming back to the board trying to get more money. These are based upon meeting every criteria that they have. Now, it's an unknown because everything is based upon an infrared. They come out and we do an infrared study of the roof and the manufacturer's inspection. Now, you've put in the budget some belt and suspenders things to protect you by having a consultant. So now we have a consultant and the manufacturer's representative inspecting the roofs. They come to a conclusion on exactly how many feet of base flashing this is, how many square feet of wet roof needs to be replaced, how much gravel stop needs to be done, how much base flashing has to be done. This estimate is based upon the whole roof as we see it today, meeting 100% of the criteria that we've seen the manufacturers require in order to get these warranty extensions. This is the high end.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer?
Yeah,
your
it's just,
question?
it's the high end, and hopefully, it's not going to come in at this.
I don't
because-
anticipate it being that, but I want to make sure that I'm not going to tell you a low number and come back and tell you that it's higher, and all of a sudden this goes out to bid. The big thing with this, too, is that these numbers were done quite some time ago. It's been alluded to, this has been going on for quite some time. The dates in there, you've been leveraging your buying power with the manufacturers in suggesting they extend things and move them out, and they're willing to work with you. The manufacturers, you have a mixed portfolio of roofing systems on the different properties you have. They obviously want to do business with you in the future, and these roofs probably aren't as much of exposure as some of your other ones for them, but.
Yeah, see, my whole concern is I agree we need to do the work. I'm looking at the prices compared to what I pay, and they're astronomical
What-
to what, go ahead, to what I pay. And that's really my only concern.
What
And
type
when
of roofing systems are you comparing them to? Are you using built-up roofing systems or
We
single-ply?
have built-up roofings, we have, was it
EPDM?
Yes,
Yeah. These are all built up in gravel.
so it's a little more.
Yeah. And this is worst-case scenario. Now, obviously, most of you, if not all of you, are business people. The manufacturers are going to put a warranty on this. They're in the business of selling product. Of course, they're going to come out and say, all of it needs to be done. And that's why you've put the consultant in there to say, we don't think so. And a lot of it goes to what the infrared is. These are doing everything on the school, so you're not coming back saying that you're going to need a bunch more money to do something different.
Right. So the built-up roof, we have one building that has a built-up roof, and we have one building that has this EPDM, right? Us. I'm talking about our company,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Now, I mean, the built-up was somewhat more expensive, but it wasn't that much more expensive. And I just
These
still, I
aren't
look,
costs of roofs, these are costs of
I understand.
restoration.
which still,
No, there's a big difference. Restorations on built-up are much more expensive than they
okay.
are
But
to...
288,000 for, there's no way we would pay that.
Was
I'm talking about even for Osborne.
to redo all of your flashings?
Well, that's the thing, I don't know how many flashings we're talking about.
Yeah,
So I'm
exactly.
relying on you, I
Well,
guess.
Osborne has an extensive amount of curb flashings and base flashings. If you go up your cost per square foot, do we have that broken?
Well, no, it's not broken out.
Okay.
Well-
Sherman has a lot less base flashings, but more gravel stops. Gravel stops are less expensive to do than the base flashings. So when you start breaking out cost per square foot, the other thing you have in there is Holland Hill is a much smaller school. You got setup charges, mobilization, you've got all of the same amount of time and energy you're going to do to set up.
No, I looked at
let's
it.
say.
Sherman is the least, and Holland Hill is the most, if you're going to,
Exactly, per square foot.
yeah.
Exactly. And there you're amortizing in your costs.
Thank you.
Over a large amount.
Mrs. Leclerc, did you have something?
I did. One, it might not be available for tonight, but for the future, and I know we're going to have more roof projects coming, could you give us your long-term capital plan for it by building and how many roofs they have and square foot? Just so we can understand the big picture. I think that would be really helpful when we look at something.
On the last page of the packet,
Yep.
this is our long-term capital plan.
Anybody that didn't bring the handouts, I have extras.
And we are putting out, we are specifying how many square feet of roofing we have. Dwight is 39,000 square foot worth of roof that would be replaced. That's not all of the roof there, there's other sections.
That's what I'm asking for, is so I know, like, that Dwight has 3 different age pieces of roof for,
That is very small scale in here. On another page, I can get you a bigger one. If you look with a magnifying glass back at this one, this is the Hoffman report. We can get you 11 by 17 of the matrix that shows all our different roof sections. We can get you that in a more reader-friendly
yeah. So if you
format.
could get us something like this that would show the age of each roof, the condition,
Sure.
square foot, I think that would be really helpful to understand the big picture of it.
Correct.
Then I had another question, is that we just approved a project for Sherman, and it seems to me that it would make sense if we did the roof at the same time we were doing the other work. Is that possible, or is that, when would this work be done?
We would have to look at the FEMA costs
Yeah, the
with
FEMA
the building committee.
regulation will,
It
Won't allow
even
us to
plays
do
in
that.
roofing?
yeah.
It does.
Maintenance, certain types of maintenance don't fall into the FEMA. It's something that we would have to talk with the zoning department that enforces it, how to actually implement that on the backdrop of the Sherman project.
Okay. And then I guess part 2 of that is, I keep hearing that Riverfield has a renovation around the corner, so.
That we
would
would.
you do the-
Definitely we would there, because there's no FEMA regulation. The work we'd be looking at Riverfield had a small roof redone over the pod area, but any addition and renovation we did there, we'd look at the rest of the building.
But then, I guess my other concern is in the TFC report, it says that this warranty work has to be done by, within 6 months of August of 2011, which would bring us to February, and not an ideal time to do roofs.
No, it's 6 months past the expiration.
Okay.
Of the 5 schools, they all have a different expiration date. The first one coming up was August of 2011, was the 6-month
Okay,
span. They all have a different expiration.
okay. I think that's it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. DeWitt?
Thank you. You guys got to walk me through this, because I'm really confused.
Sure.
Is it, does the year go all the way across? The
Yes.
years? So,
These are 2 parallel charts.
okay,
The right hand of the page is reemphasizing what was in the Hoffman report several years ago as a
Okay.
proposed plan that
So
we
in that
were
book,
working
it says
as.
that we should do the improvements and warranty for 901, then the shingles and the Dwight, so I get that. So that book basically says spend $3.5 million.
No, no, no.
Oh, the other side, I'm sorry.
The one that's expensive is what was said. This is straight replacements, taking your replacements per Hoffman
Okay, got it.
requirements.
So does
That's what it
300,
was.
so 21 to 2017, does that replace every roof in every school?
No, it does not.
Okay.
That is not replacing every roof.
So here's
That's,
where-
that's replacing a total of, we have total square footage, 371,000 square feet worth of roof over 5 years, in comparison to rehabilitating or replacing 256,000 square feet worth of roof.
right?
We're comparing the costs. And then I'm comparing the cost for the next two years, 212,000 square feet and 113,000.
And that's rehabilitating down here as well?
These are replacements. What we're looking at is rehabilitation is for this year, 2011.
So the only rehabilitation is the 901?
Correct.
When you say shingles and Dwight, this is, everything from there down is replacement?
Is replacement. And what we're doing is, and the reason why we're refining this plan is that if, I'll jump you back to another page. This is what I mentioned before. How much roofing do you need to replace in 1 year? If you use the straight line basis, the right-hand column, as an entity, we would say, how often do we want to replace our roofs, fully rotate our portfolio in a straight line method? How much square footage would you have to replace a year? Times the replacement cost per square foot, or the number I said that we.
So this says that if we want to replace every 20 years, we'd need to replace, let's call it
59,000.
58,783.
Right. And that's a projected cost of $1,506,000 per year.
Okay.
For the
So
next-
let's just stick with square footage for a second. Here, you're saying 74,302. I'm back to the other page.
Correct.
So that's 20.
That's what was
Well,
projected in the
16,000.
Hoffman.
I guess I'm confused with apples and oranges, right? So on the 901,467, that's only going to give us 10 years. Best case scenario for those 5 schools, 10 more years
Okay.
for us to figure out what we got to do. If we did just straight replacement, you'd have 20 years.
Let me put this in a square foot, cost per square foot per year.
Okay.
The $900,000 that we're talking about comes out to a cost of $5.75 a square foot.
Yeah.
Even if that only lasted 5 years, that's $1.15 per square foot. If you take a full replacement cost, using the square foot number that we received from the TFC,
Yeah.
$26.54, and you said that gets you a 20-year roof, that's $1.33 per square foot per year times 20 years. You're spending more per year for having a warranted roof and a well-performing roof. So you're kicking the can down the road for a lower cost while you're thinking about what you're going to be doing for a replacement.
But in 10 years, you're going to go right back to that, whatever the last number you said, because we're going to have to replace them in 10 years. 10 years from now, we're replacing these things.
Yes.
You're
More
not
than
solving
likely,
the
you're not
issue.
going to have
You're not,
another.
si- no,
You're
not-
kicking the can.
right. So if
But you're
you're,
taking a large chunk of your portfolio, it's performing well, and you're ensuring that it's performing well at a lower cost, and moving it down the line so you can work on more critical items in the next few years
Oh,
that you
so
know that are coming up.
if
So
you
you're spending
extended this-
small money.
if you extended this list out to 2025, theoretically, in 2021, we'd start seeing that same number $74,302 because we couldn't fix them anymore, right?
Right.
And our hourly, and our cost per square foot would be $45 or something like that at that point. So you are right, we are
You're-
pushing to a certain extent those 5 schools.
You're pushing them down the line
Because of other priorities.
because of other priorities, you're pushing them down the line, and at a low cost. I know that the numbers look big, but it's a lot of bang for the buck. And overall, keeping them warranted keeps them performing as far as getting warranty repairs. It reduces the exposure on our PM program, where instead of spending that 5 cents a square foot we're getting on our warranty roofs, we wouldn't be getting that anymore if all of these roofs fell off a warranty. When we started this, we had about 2/3 of the portfolio under warranty when we started this analysis. When you look at the chart in the packet, we're probably about 50% now because more roofs are falling off of warranty.
And you've made a general assumption over here that all of if we just ripped them off and put a new one, we would be on full warranty.
Correct.
That's one of the assumptions you baked in, right?
And both of them put you into warranty, is either extending them or giving you a new warranty. So they're performing that way.
I guess I understand what you're saying. It is kind of an unfair comparison. If you're looking at 5 years, okay, I get it. If you're looking at 7 years, I get it. But when you're out to 10, 11 years, you're just resetting the clock.
Right. It's a continuous thing, much like Public Works coming to you on average, we replace 1/20th of the roads every year, and there's so many miles. It's a continuous item, but it is a
Right.
long-term item.
Yeah.
I want to move on. Chris, do you
Yeah,
have any
no,
other
no,
questions?
no, please.
I'm going to go to Mr. Bolito, then I'm going to go to Mr. Mayor and Mr. Brockville.
Frankly, the gentleman in the vest sold me on the warranty thing and the cost of about $800,000 to do the work. I get that. I'm prepared to vote in favor of this tonight, but here's the question I have for you. We're basically spending short of $1 million to buy us 10 years of time so we can address more critical projects, and it gives us time to kind of reset. And here's the thing. At some point, like we've all been mentioning, 10 years from now, these roofs are all going to come due again. What's the game plan in terms of addressing those roofs 10 years from now? That's what I haven't heard yet.
To answer that, some of the roofs that are coming up, believe it or not, would be some of our younger roofs. Roger Ludlow Middle School, Burr, McKinley. And those roofs at that time would be analyzed for the same thing. Can we get more bang for our bucks? Is there a restoration? Either this program, or I'm sure there'll be another new
But
program.
how do you resolve these
Yeah,
roofs? I
I'm
think is
talking
what
about
he's asking.
specifically Sherman, North Stratfield, Osborne Hill, Riverfield, Holland Hill. Those 5 that we're talking about as
The
part of
ones
the
that you're
program.
kicking the can on.
So those 10 years from now
Well,
are all going to come due.
It'd
What's
be the
plan
way
for
that we
those?
addressed Fairfield Ward High School, which actually isn't working. Fairfield Ward High School, we started in 2006.
Which what isn't working?
Isn't working. We're now 6 years into this project, Fairfield Ward High School, and we only have a pitch waiver up at the state level.
So you just said the game plan is to do
So-
exactly the plan that's not working now?
No, our game
You know the
plan was,
definition of
our game
insanity?
plan was to do Fairfield Ward High School in 4 phases over 4 years, starting in 2010. That project is still not started.
All right, but I'm totally confused now. What is the game plan for the specific schools, Sherman, North Stratfield, Osborne Hill, Riverfield, and Holland Hill, 10 years from now?
It will
How
be
are we
to-
going to replace those roofs so we're not doing them all at once 10 years from now?
It'll be to hopefully continue the PM program along
Sorry,
the
the what
way.
program?
The PM program, preventive maintenance
Okay,
program, that we've been working very hard on, and monitor those roofs on a regular basis and get them into the queue for full replacement over a reasonable amount of time.
So 10 years from now, we've extended the life. You're going to systematically say, all right, we're going to take one of these schools and we're going to basically knock them off one at a time, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on what the condition of the particular
Condition
school's
of the
roofs are
roof
at that
is,
time.
any additions or renovations at the school, just like Riverfield, Mrs. Leclerc brought up, all of those instances and decisions.
So the game plan is not to do them all at once, correct?
Correct.
All right, that's all I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple of One question to Mr. Briggs. In the report, the TFC report, it says that the TFC endorses a plan to select an independent architectural engineering firm specializing in roofing. So is Tecta such a firm?
Tech is a contractor. They're not a designer. In other words, if you want your roof replaced or a roof project, you can go. If you're at home, you just call a contractor. If you're a commercial client, where I work, for instance, we have a list of roofing consultants that also do windows and the whole envelope. And we call on them, and they give us a report, and then we go out to the contractors with some scope of work, bid it, and do the repairs. We would go to a Tecta once we know the scope of work.
So, I guess then to Mr. Cullen, why did we go to a contractor instead of an engineer or a consultant?
We only went to the contractor to get a budgetary number for all the boards to look at and approve. For us to hire an architect, we'd need to have funding for an architect to look and walk every single roof. They normally get anywhere between $20,000 and $30,000 per school.
So Tetreau did this pro bono?
Correct.
We currently have your maintenance program, and as part of our maintenance program, we do the inspections. And then what we try and do is work with our customers to manage their portfolios. And a lot of what we've been working off of is the Hoffman report, and then also what we're seeing out on the roofs during the inspections, during the leak cycles that we've been having, and working on the roofs as to what's been going on with them. And you've been doing a lot of renovations, so that plays a lot of things. You've done a lot of changing. But we do those, we put budget numbers out for our customers, yes.
Again, so, but you would not then be bidding on the work?
I wouldn't write the scope of work. I would be bidding on the work. But that's, like Sal said, you would hire an independent architect or a spec writer to write the specification, and it would have to go in conjunction, according to what we laid out in the budget, with the manufacturer, because I'm a strong opponent of getting that warranty for you, because it does have value.
Okay, and then part of, somewhere in here I read that it required some kind of infrared analysis. Infrared, so did you do that?
We have not
The
done the
infrared survey?
infrared, no, and we have not done that on the roofs. We're not required to under our contract to do those.
But that would be
That
required.
would be required
For the warranty.
if you wanted to get a good look at your roof and you were looking to go for the warranty, that would be a requirement from the manufacturer to have that done and have it inspected by their inspector. You've put a safeguard in there by hiring another architect or consultant to do the same thing, basically. They'll get a copy of the infrared, they'll also walk the roof, they'll come to a mutual agreement as to what really needs to be done to clarify the scope. Because it isn't like you're putting a new roof on, this is what it is. There is some unknowns there that
Right.
are based upon past performance history and visual analysis of the condition of the flashings and other components.
Now, these roofs that we were talking about are currently under warranty. Yes.
Two just rolled out of warranty.
But we're going to spend $885,000 to repair them, so obviously the warranty doesn't cover everything. Can you explain to a layperson what the warranty covers and what it doesn't cover?
The warranty that you would receive on this, or the warranty you currently have?
The warranty we currently have and the warranty we would receive.
It covers any leak repairs that are caused by material failures or poorment of workmanship. On the materials.
So material favors or?
Workmanship errors.
Or workmanship errors, okay.
Okay, so if somebody didn't put it down correctly.
This is the current warranty you're talking about, or the
Yep.
future warranty?
Both.
Both, okay.
That's what, the warranty is an extension of what you already have. The warranty will cover the repair cost for a leak that would be from material failures or poor workmanship. And they cover both labor and materials, so the cost of the entire cost to repair that. What they don't cost are your other building components. They didn't build the bricks, they didn't make the bricks, they didn't make the mortar, they don't warrant masonry. The metal flashings, some of them are covered under your current warranty, some of them aren't. If the manufacturer sold them, then they're covered. If the manufacturer didn't sell them, chances are that the 90% of yours, or well, probably 70% of yours are not covered. Windows, they don't cover leaks by windows.
Okay, the $885,718 that needs to be done is obviously not covered by a warranty, because, so,
No, they cover leaks. They don't cover giving you a new roof. If you have a leak that's
Right.
caused at the base flashing, now your base flashings are old and they're tired and they need some help. They're not leaking today. They're not going to come out and bring these up to new condition
okay, so this is the...
at no
okay.
charge.
Mr. Cullen, though, mentioned that there was leaks today.
Just to be clear, every roof has a leak, and we have, hang on a second, can I just get a demonstration?
Gonna Go get a roof?
Those two binders are our 16 schools, and those are leak reports and repair reports for 1 year. This is 16 schools. So every day a leak's reported, just,
And all that
or
was
every
covered-
third day
and
a
all
leak's
that was-
reported and it's repaired.
And all
So-
that's covered by warranties?
No, not all of it,
Some of it.
some of it. But we're proactive in number one, reporting our leaks, making sure the manufacturers know about it. If it is warranty, pursuing the warranty money. But number one, fixing it as soon as possible so that it doesn't exacerbate the problem. The worst thing you can do is not respond to a leak. That shortens the life.
So some of those leaks were of roofs that were under warranty and some were not?
Correct.
The ones that were under warranty were fixed without cost to us?
Correct.
Okay. Now, back to one of Mr. Brown's questions, which, yes, was like, the contractor that would then bid, let's say it was Tetreau, and you got the job, you would not warranty your work?
We hold a 2-year warranty, and then the manufacturer picks up the balance of the 5 years. So anything that's standard practice. yeah.
So if you did this $800,000 worth of work, would you warranty the work?
Oh, yeah.
Then why do we need to pay for the warranty, even though it's only $15,000?
You pay for the warranty whether you know it or not in every roof that you're buying.
So you,
I can tell you, I'm giving you a warranty for free, but I'm going to add it into the cost.
okay, so the warranty
Poke it out
is,
so you can see
so the warranty is a separate package regardless?
It always is.
Gotcha. So it's not like,
We give a 2-year warranty on all the work that we perform.
Follow up on one question Bob had.
That's
Gotcha.
standard.
I will.
But
He's not. I want
every
to
roof
follow
that you
up
put
it.
on goes out to bid, there's a warranty included in the cost of that roof. That's how you ended up with the warranties that you currently have.
right. And this work was done to come up with the list of repairs and work necessary requisite to qualify for the extended warranty, according to the letter signed by, I don't know, it was Mike Shuttler? Is that
That's
you?
me.
That's you, right?
Yep.
Okay. So how much of this work would need to be done if we weren't looking at the warranty today? None
Depends
of it?
on how long you want the roof to last.
Okay.
If you want to extend the
But
life
not-
2 years, do
Right.
half the work.
So none of it is, because Mr. Cullen, I thought, earlier today said some of the work needs to be done now to keep the roof there, but, so, what you're saying, so this work is necessary for longevity, not for today. And longevity may be, and today may be tomorrow, next week, next month, something might happen
This winter,
this winter.
Last winter.
Okay, Mr. Cullen, you mentioned something earlier that caught me by surprise. You said to get reimbursement from the state, we have to prove the warranty is expired.
Okay.
So, what were you trying to tell us there, that we shouldn't have warranties?
The board was mentioning that the warranties aren't important. Mr. Bricks was mentioning that the warranties aren't important. And I wanted to make sure you understood that for Fairfield, as a school and educational system, to get reimbursement from the state, we need to prove that the warranty is expired. They won't reimburse you if you replace a roof and the expiration of the warranty isn't over.
Is what? Isn't over.
Is not over. It has to
Okay.
be expired.
The state pays, when the state participates or reimburses on a roof replacement project, 20 years ago, they gave us our percentage, whatever it was at the time. I think it was 38% probably, or something back then.
Okay.
They want value for their money. They're not going
I'm
to
sorry.
pay us again to replace the roof after 15 years.
Right, they want to
They
make sure
want
the
their full-
warranty cycle's up.
Right, exactly.
But the warranty cycle is up on these.
Right.
Only one right now.
Right,
But within the
Higher
next
than
few
August.
months, it'll be up on all
For
of
the
them.
next few months, all 5 will be.
right. But the work that you would do, would the state be giving reimbursement on if the roof is replaced? I mean, does the
If we
state-
had a full replacement on a roof that's past its warranty, we did a full top-to-bottom replacement, down to the metal deck or concrete deck below the roof, full replacement, we would get our reimbursement on that roof project, and our basic reimbursement rate is just under 26%.
So if these roofs need replacement within the next 5 years, then we would not get any state reimbursement?
Correct. If you approve this tonight and we went ahead with this, got the work finished, got the 5-year extension, and then had to replace one of them, then we would have to work with the state and figure out how they'd handle that. A 20-year roof that expired, we extended the warranty by doing some repairs, and how that would be covered.
And by the way,
Fair
Osborne
question.
Hill would go from 1.2 million to 800,000, right? Or whatever the percentage is, would you say? 26%?
Call it
So
a quarter.
So
Right, you can-
300,000,
you can
so it'd
fa-
be 900,000.
Correct.
I'd like to, again, companies like Johns Manville or many of the others, some of them don't exist anymore, but the built-up roof manufacturers were notorious in not cooperating and getting reimbursement. However, the single-ply roofs, the rubber, the EPDM you mentioned, because the repair is fairly easy, inexpensive to put patches, like patching a tire, put a patch in a tire, they tend to come out and stand behind the roofs, while the other ones tend to give you a story why it wasn't somebody else's fault. The failure is your negligence, lack of maintenance. So maybe we have a good experience with Johns Manville on a built-up roof in this town. That hasn't been my experience.
We've had good experience with all our manufacturers as far as warranties when they come up.
And actually,
I mean, the only one that I would say we have a problem, I think everybody remembers, is our participation in the Roger Ludlow repair. And that was an EPDM, that was a rubber roof. It wasn't a built-up roof. So that, it's a little bit countered. That's about the only odd warranty repair that we've had. The other ones are 100%.
All right, let's go back to Mr. Mayor
Okay,
then.
so if one of these 5 roofs require replacement within the next 5 years, or 5 years, the lagged 5 or the tiered 5 years, because there's over time, then this warranty would end up costing us money.
no, if
Because we
you had a
wouldn't get-
complete
because we wouldn't get-
failure, if you had a complete failure in the next 5 years and you purchased the warranty, they would cover it 100%.
Okay.
So that's why you're buying the warranty.
But you said it's only for,
Your materials, not your labor.
Oh, yes, you would.
so you basically said the warranty, though, was only for poor workmanship or material failure. Is there any other reason that you need to, those are only 2 reasons that you would need a new roof? There's no other potential
They
reason?
wouldn't cover, if a hurricane came through and blew it off and it was contributed to the deck.
Insurance would cover
windows
that.
Or something.
Insurance would cover that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So those are the only 2 reasons that roofs go bad. It's poor workmanship and age.
Well, you can also have damage caused by others, skateboards going through the roofs, if we have trees hitting the roofs, if people vandalize the roofs, if people are working on the roofs and they cause damage and we don't find out about it, if somebody goes up and drops a screwdriver in the roof, puts a hole in it, they're not going to warranty that. That's
And then if
a
we
condition
need,
they can't control.
so the warranty is not expired, and the warranty doesn't cover, and we need to replace the roof, in that situation, where it was caused by a non-warranty event, would the state participate in?
I'm not sure how to answer that, because we've never asked the state to look at a roof, 20-year roof that's expired. We did some work to it to add an extension to the warranty, and then it expired again. Would they give us the reimbursement? We'd have to check into that for you.
Okay.
As Tom said, we would have to check, but because they did not participate in that extension of the warranty, they did not give a reimbursement on it. They're only concerned where did they give us the money and when, and they wanted the 20 years of
Okay,
life on
my
it.
last question, then, now, in looking at some of this thing where I read about the infrared survey and some other things, what would be the next steps? If you got this money, this $901,000, what would be the next steps?
We'd hire an architectural firm, go out to bid with an RFP, hire an architectural firm like a Hoffman Architects that does roofs and rehabilitation to do a specification on the work that Techno America did, to verify it, accumulate lineal footage to be replaced, do the details of what we want to have replaced for something that we could go out to bid with for each and every school, and then schedule it for the appropriate time.
And then the work would be done, then the infrared analysis
No,
after
the
the work
infrared
is done?
first. Infrared is searching for water
Work for
under
water
the membrane.
for the membrane, okay.
Moisture under the membrane.
So it's, and then theoretically, that's all fixed, repaired, and then the warranty is purchased.
Signed off on and dated.
Right. And is all of that work, the engineer, et cetera, included in the 885?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, I'm going to follow up on Mr. Mayor before I go over to Mr. Brockfield. So, because I want to make sure I understand this, and I think you just answered it. TFC has recommended that an architectural firm be hired to come in and verify the work. And in essence, you guys agree with that, because you're saying step one of the process of the $900,000 is to do that.
Correct.
Then you're saying that, hey, of the $900,000, I think this, I appreciate the candor. Basically, you gave us the high-end cost estimates, understanding that it was dated a few months ago now, right? But you gave us the high-end cost estimates to fix this because you're not sure what you're going to find, and you don't want to have to come back in, right? My question is, so what we're not doing is we're not saving any money by not having Hoffman do this, because Sal, what you had said was, geez, if you go and hire Hoffman, they're going to cost you 20 grand to go and walk on every roof and come and do the analysis, right?
I said that, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I didn't mean to put words in your mouth.
Right.
But in essence, you're paying the 20 grand anyway because it's your first step. So it's a lot more palatable for me as I sit here to say, go spend the 100 grand, get the analysis done, and then come back with better estimates as to exactly what it's going to cost to do it, rather than write a check today for $901,000 and say, hey, you may need that, you may need 700, you may need 600. It's just, I'd rather get the analysis done and know exactly what you're talking about and then improve it going forward.
I hear you,
That's-
I understand it. My issue with it, and what I always try to remind you, is it's bonded. And you're only bonding what we pay, what we actually pay for.
Yeah, well,
So if we don't spend the 875,000 plus, we don't bond that.
well, you're getting to another point, and you're jumping ahead, and I'm going to, Mr. Brockfield, do you mind if I
But
continue?
Secondly, I also wanted to say that there's a couple of projects we're doing that way, and they're taking too long to get done.
Because why?
They're in committee level.
What committee?
McKinley Roof is still with the TFC.
Yeah, okay,
We bonded only the 30,000 for the consultant.
right. And it's unfair, Mr. Briggs, to put you on the spot
9
to
months
speak to
now.
that, but I don't, you could speak, why is McKinley taking so long then, Reader's Digest version?
We We hired Hoffman very expeditiously to do a report. They completed the report. We voted on to accept this report. Then we immediately told them to give us a proposal on what it would cost to do the documents, the bid documents, and they gave us a proposal. That part of it has, because of summer, vacation, hurricane, kind of slipped in terms of getting it signed off and
Right.
sent off back to Hoffman so they can start the work. But otherwise, maybe anything that goes through our hands goes a little slower because of the meeting times, and
Right.
we have to.
Well, you got a lot of projects there.
Vote on,
Yeah, yeah.
to accept things and to vote on paying invoices.
Right.
It's a
Do you
little
guys have a target
bureaucratic.
date to deliver the McKinley report? So that, because
The
it's,
McKinley report has been delivered, and now we're awarding the repair specs, drawing specs for the repair.
okay.
That could be awarded tomorrow.
You don't
It's
have
been
any of that
approved.
information, Mr. Cullen? All right, so obviously there's some communications
No.
issue there of some form or another.
Mr. Al Kelly took a to-do a couple of days ago to get with
Yeah.
Twig and get it signed off.
Okay.
We had the signature pages there, and says we have to get it to Twig.
No, I appreciate that. Because, Mr. Brockfield, with your indulgence, I want to go down this line. I'm looking at your report here, and I'm looking at kind of the annual maintenance costs, right? And we're talking about repair of roofs here. That's what this is repair to extend the useful life for an undetermined period of time. Could be 5 years, right? The warranty's saying 5 years, you guys are hoping to get 10. You're asking us to bond it for 10, okay? It's eerily reminiscent of a conversation we had at this board table regarding paving and regarding how we treat paving in operating budget versus capital budget, and how we put together a plan to actually transition the paving from the capital budget to an operating budget item over a period of years. And as I sit here and I look and I say, geez, you guys have, 14 buildings. How many buildings is it? 16?
17.
17,
buildings.
actually.
So it's 17 buildings that you need to upkeep every year. What's your roofing budget within your operating budget to do this?
Historically, roof replacements
I
have
get-
been bonded.
Yeah,
Roof maintenance is operational.
Yeah, so so
90,000 this year,
so
and it'll be
$90,000,
escalating,
and
it'll
how
be
many-
escalating
How
up.
many square feet of roof?
Millions.
Millions?
1 million to 1.2 million square feet worth of roof is what we have in our district.
So 1.2 million square feet of roof, and you're budgeting 90,000 to repair and maintain it every year.
10 and a half cents a square foot is what we,
And what's that based on?
past performance, but as the years go by, we've missed the mark on that and had to make up for it
You
when we
also
had
s-
a
yeah.
bad winter, let's say.
You also said something that was very interesting before that was, and I don't mean it as a criticism, and you were meaning it as a compliment to the team, and I get it, which was essentially, hey, these guys are really good at working their warranties, right? Which is a double-edged sword. It's like, hey, you're really good at working your warranties, which means you had a problem, right? And you were able, it's kind of like, if my car breaks down, it's covered by warranty. Is that like a good thing, or is it just because the car broke down? And should I be doing my annual budget for my car maintenance based on the fact that I'm going to get it back in the warranty? It's kind of, that doesn't, because you're able to use the warranty, it doesn't stop you from needing to maintain the item on an annual basis in your operating budget,
Correct.
right? So my question here is, the 90,000 would appear to be a little light.
It's supplemented by almost 50%, again, by warranty money that we have coming in. So
Okay, but again-
essentially, we would have $150,000
Yeah, but again,
if we
that's
didn't
like saying
proceed.
I'm supplementing my car repairs by saying they're going to cover it on the warranty. I mean,
But the monies that we use operating-wise, warranty-wise, to repair the roofs pay great dividends. A typical roof, just an average roof around around the country gets replaced in a 17-year period. That's a report that I can...
I saw that. I can read that, yeah.
And we have some roofs, the roofs that we're talking about are 20 years old. We have some that are 22 years old, so we're getting good performance from our roofs, and it's because we're maintaining them.
And I'm not saying you're not. What I'm trying to figure out is what part of this should actually be operating costs every year versus what part should be capital costs every year versus what part should really be capital costs, which is, let's go to your 1.2 million for the full replacement of Osborne Hill that's going to get 20 years, right? And it's what's a transition plan to get there to make sure that items like these where you're repairing your roofs on an annual basis are just repair items to extend the useful lives versus capital items where we get into the problems like Mr. Cullen was just saying about, gee, you know, you guys want to capitalize this, don't you want to capitalize this? I mean, no. Am I particularly enamored of capitalizing $100,000 to go out and do the testing? No, I'm not enamored of that. But if it's going to get me a better number before I'm asked to commit to $900,000, it kind of makes sense to me. Do you know what I'm saying?
I can...
Yeah, our issue is that we look at roughly 35 to 40 projects a year. For us to get an architect to look at every one of those 35 or 40 so we can bring you a hard number on a piece of paper that's accurate and won't change is a very large number.
But here's what you just told me. I would agree with you if you didn't already tell me that you were hiring them anyway.
Mhm.
They're included in this number.
They have to be for the bid process.
And I get it. So you're hiring them anyway. So it's not like this is an extra...
But, Tom, if we pay for all these architects and engineers to bring you the proposals, and of the 35 or 40 projects, 20 get approved, then the money we spent on the other 15, 20 that didn't get approved is coming out of the Board of Ed's budget.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have that kind of money to start taking that out. We're going to try and do our best this year to bring to this board some good numbers from architects that are costing it out and working with another firm to give us an idea of how good our budget numbers are. But we're still not bringing you a hard number that won't change unless we do bid documents, go out to bid, and then bring you those bids.
Which is the normal process for when you capitalize something.
Correct.
Okay. Last question, then I will turn it over to Mr. Brockfield, and thank you for your indulgence. The comment before about Ward that we made light of, you know, hey, it was a plan, we haven't followed it for 4 years. Let me ask a question, why? I don't remember it coming before this body and being...
Yes, it has. Matter
Before
of
this
fact,
body?
the former first selectman brought in the Sarnafil rep in 2006.
2006.
Fight the issue that we could get another 5 or 6 years out of that roof.
For Ward?
Yep.
So it came before us in 2006 and it hasn't been back
2006,
since?
2007. No, we've talked about it. It's been back to you last year. It was in 2010.
And we
was
cut
a-
it?
It was a 4-phase budget. You asked that the TFC investigate it.
Okay, so where does that stand?
Right now, Ward has 157 leaks.
No, where does it stand with the
And-
TFC?
And it's at the
By the way,
state level.
judging by those books, that's not that bad.
There has to be a pitch waiver that the architect submitted to the state because the roof pitch for the state to reimburse the whole project has to be higher. The insulation level has to be
Right.
higher than what's up there now. And we have to get a waiver to go with a 1/4-inch pitch
Remember
instead of a
Ward.
half.
Yeah, I
That
don't
paperwork
remember
is up
Ward.
at the state level, and we got a verbal discussion from the state that it's going to be rejected because it's not in the format they wanted. It didn't answer the questions. So it's up at the state level, going to be questioned. A letter's going to come to the superintendent. We'll bring that to the TFC, and the architect, Hoffman, will have to revise it and do more work and send it back up to the state.
Okay.
So in essence, we're not starting Fairfield Ward High School roof this year or probably summer of 2012.
It's going to take that long? I honestly don't remember that coming to us as a full project, maybe 2006.
It's in the
but I don't
long-range
remember.
plans. We broke it down into 4 years, 1.5 million a
Yeah.
year.
Okay, yeah.
Why would we build a roof that the state wouldn't approve the repairs and?
The state took on a new pitch waiver to make the roof steeper, so the water's not standing on it as long as it used to. The problem is, when you look at a roof like Fairfield Ward High School and it's so large, it was designed 20 years ago with less roof drains, less pitch, and when you start raising that roof pitch up, it goes past the parapet walls on the side, so it gets higher than what the roof's designed for. There's a way to get a roof pitch waiver, add more drains, and do some things to the roof so it will drain properly. with a lower pitch.
Okay, thank you. Go to Mr. Brockfeld, then I want to, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Mike, for you, John's Mansville, are they the only providers or makers of roofing materials?
No.
How many different companies?
You currently have at least a dozen? Yeah, 12 different manufacturers.
Right. So why are we limiting ourselves to John's Mansville products for the repair or replacement?
Those are the 5 schools that have Johns Manville on them now.
And they're incompatible with any other brand of roofing material?
That's actually something that we predicated the numbers on the John Manville product, and we admit
See,
that.
what's
But
really-
the architect, once hired, can look into those alternate solutions
It does.
to achieve the same
See why?
end game.
Yeah.
Is it possible? Yes.
Yes. See, what's really concerning me here about this is that I'm like everyone on this board, I think, just gathering the feel of it, I don't think anybody's disputing your assessment of the roofs and the concerns and the leaks, and we don't need leaking roofs that, first of all, leak now and then obviously get worse.
Or 159 times.
159. But it strikes me that, in fact, it strikes me as obvious that the cost estimates that were being shown are being driven by what Johns Mansville is going to be requiring for this warranty. Right, you're nodding, okay. In fact, you even said that you're going to, at some point, they're going to walk up there on the roof and point out what they need to be done. So to me, the warranty is regardless of what you guys say, or not regardless, but it sounds to me like the warranty is not all that necessary, personally. They're charging us $3,000 per roof for 5 years of warranty. They can't be expecting to do much work up there. That's nothing. It's free, basically. So that's number one. Number two, what I'd like to know, before I was willing to approve anything, would be what an independent, and I understand the problem, the timing problem, and I
Yeah,
understand,
it's a
and this
fair
is
problem.
this is a perpetual problem here. It's
Yeah.
nobody's fault per se, but I'm very uncomfortable with approving a bond issue. This has nothing to do with the necessity of work, so don't get it. Is that we approve a bond issue for $900,000. We advertise to the world that we're ready to spend $900,000 to do this work. And then we call in an expert, and then we call in people to bid, knowing full well how much money we're willing to spend on it. And I don't think, I'm not convinced that $885 is an accurate number, because it's being driven by one manufacturer's requirements in order to provide us a warranty that practically guarantees them that they'll never have to do anything, because obviously they're going to demand that we do such a complete and thorough and excellent job, which we should do anyway, that it's unlikely, if not impossible, that they're going to be doing any warranty work in 5 years. It has to be at $3,000 per school for 5 years. It just has to be. So that's my real big concern, is that I think we need to do something that, like Tom was saying, I'd be much more comfortable approving a modest amount of money to get an independent consultant in to not tell them we have any interest in using Johns Mansville versus any of those other dozen companies that provide roofing materials, and find out what it is that they think it will cost to put these roofs in good shape so that they can last another 5 to 10 years, which is what you're saying is what your goals are, right? And that number may be significantly, in fact, I'm pretty sure it'll be significantly less than $885,000.
That'd be fine, but you'd be waiving the extended waiver, the warranty.
Yeah,
Then
by
we
the
would be waiving the warranty.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be fine with that, but that's not my decision to make.
Yeah.
And we may circle back and say we want to do the Johns Manville method, by the way.
Well, we wouldn't be able to then. I mean, if we go another year, Johns Manville may back out of the deal.
Yeah, and I don't want to discount your points, raised earlier about how the delay in the process and all that, because I think it's very legitimate. I mean, we talked about it at the Capital Planning Summit a couple of weeks back. I mean, I'm not trying to, it's a justifiable concern on your part, that. So I'm not making light of that in any way, shape, or form. I was just trying to get clarity on what the project was trying to
No,
accomplish.
we thank the board for letting us come and talk to you about this project.
Yeah, no, go ahead, I'm sorry to interrupt.
And then on a personal note, or with Twig here and with the amount of time we spent talking about purchasing tonight, and nothing to do with you whatsoever, I'm sure you do an outstanding job for our town. I'm very uncomfortable with the fact that you're involved with this, your company's involved with this from minute one, having extensive knowledge of what's going on up there, walking the roofs, and then bidding on the process. I think that's unfair to the other bidders who would be wanting to bid on this deal.
Well, the PM program was bid to several roof companies, and 2 years ago, his roof company didn't get it. Last year, Silktown got it, he was with Silktown. The next year, Tecta got it, he's with Tecta. So that process was bid, and when the architect does the new documents for each of the 5 schools, it would have to be bid.
So you don't think that there's an unfair advantage to...
Not at all.
To having a company at such
Not
an
at
early
all.
stage?
It's a
Okay,
totally
I'm just-
different thing. It's roof preventive
Okay.
maintenance program.
Twig has given me a nod that it's okay, and I trust her that it's okay. And it has nothing, and again, it had nothing to do with your company or you
Understood.
whatsoever, just with the concept. Thanks.
Do you have any other questions, comments on this?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Tetreau, what's your view, considering the conversations that we've had previously regarding the Board of Selectmen and everything else on this project? What's your, I'd like to get your comments, if I could. Thank you, guys. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mr. Briggs, thank
Thank
you
you
for
very
coming out
much.
tonight to represent the TFC.
After 3 hours of discussion, or thereabouts, I think it quite simply, I was surprised that it, as we talked earlier, Mr. Chair, I think I was surprised that it came up on your agenda, or the board's agenda, this quick. We hadn't had time to coordinate that with the Board of Selectmen meeting and getting a comparable update or presentation before the board, so the Selectmen just haven't had the opportunity to review this.
Is there, based on what you've heard tonight, which I think is new information for you, do you think it appropriate, the Board of Selectmen already acted on this item before, right?
And as part of our process, we do generally follow a linear process unless you vote it down and send it back.
Right.
Understand your comments, and certainly we've talked about that. But in essence, the Board of Selectmen, that step in the approval process has been passed.
Right.
From this standpoint, and I think to one of your earlier components, you think back to the capital workshop, and Mr. Hiller standing behind me. I think the $900,000 number for this was included, so if the Board of Finance and the RTM chose to proceed with this, that was in the assumption in that plan going forward. So the debt service numbers that this board reviewed just a couple weeks ago did include this project in those. Right. So it wouldn't change the numbers that you were looking at then.
Would you, is that right? That's right, Mr. Hill?
That's correct. It was really spread out, if you recall, it was spread out into the 5 different buildings as opposed to being one 900,000 lump into there. But
And I guess what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to be fair here and make sure everyone has their say. Do you think this is something you want to bring back before the Board of Selectmen and revisit?
If we bring it back before the Board of Selectmen, it would have to then come back before this board and
Understand.
back before the RTM. So in essence, that would be, given the timing in the election cycle, you're probably talking 2 to 3 month delay as opposed to just 30 days, which might otherwise be the case.
Yep. And by the way, it wouldn't be back before the RTM because it's never been before the RTM. It'd be back before this board, most certainly.
Yep, I stand corrected.
Well, no, I just wanted to make sure we understood it. So what's the pleasure of the board on this item?
if I could just add on that to follow up on the first Selectman said, and I think one of the thoughts on this is obviously if you look at the timeline and realize that not only do you have the election cycle and that this RTM essentially goes out of business on their meeting later this month, you're probably not looking at something getting into the RTM with the holidays, Thanksgiving, and the other holidays in December until January. And I think that, and Mr. Cullen or Mr. Or the gentleman from Tecta could comment on, your ability to get this thing,
Then let's,
the architects and out on the street and
We got
go
it.
for the summer is a
yeah,
problem.
no, we got it. Let's turn our attention then to the bond resolution and take a look through that. Let's make sure we're comfortable with that for a minute. Thank you. Yeah, we definitely will, but I want to make sure we go to public comment after we look at the bond resolution. So these are 10-year bonds?
And that is subject, obviously, to your discretion as to whether you want to amend that. Speaking with bond counsel, we put it in for 10. I didn't want to go beyond that on this particular project.
We could shorten it as
You
well.
could shorten it, certainly.
Right, thank you.
The schools aren't listed by name, is that a problem?
That is for me.
Just says 5 elementary schools.
Paragraph 6.
Yep.
Paragraph 6.
Okay, so let's start making amendments to this, and then we can go to the public for comment during that process. Yeah, I want to go, can I do 2? First of all, I want to,
I guess something on 1.
in line item number 1, instead of saying appropriates the sum, since we're not sure, I want to change that to not to exceed.
Right.
Is anybody, gentlemen, are you okay? We're doing amendments here. Do you want to? Well, no, first of all, we're going to do in line item number 1. We're going to say hereby appropriates the sum not to exceed. I'll make a motion to add not to exceed. 901.
The second?
Do I have a second to that motion? Mr. DeWitt?
Mr. Mayor did already.
Oh, okay. Okay, and I'm going to do these all together. I've got a couple, if you don't mind. And then, just in the interest of time, that's why I'm trying to go through this. Where does it reference the 5 elementary schools?
Next paragraph.
Same paragraph.
To fund the costs of repairs to roofs to extend the useful lives of 5 elementary schools.
Okay, let's change this.
Where are you?
Okay,
Still paragraph 1.
still paragraph 1.
Line 4.
Their useful lives at Sherman. North Stratfield. Osborne Hill. Riverfield. And Holland Hill. Question on that is, should we be doing Riverfield, given that it's on the docket to be renewed? Renovated. Any other changes? So that's a second amendment. Do I have a second to that? Mr. Bolito? Okay. Any other amendments to the bond resolution?
Scanning here, where are the years?
Number 6.
Change that?
I was thinking of changing it to 5 years. Are you? Okay. So we're going to change it to,
Sorry, where is that?
in line item number 6, shall be in the form maturing in not more than 5 annual installments from 10, so 5 years. And 5 years from the date of issue.
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Yes,
could we confirm with Mr. Hiller what years he used in the capital plan?
yes. Thank you, Mr. First Selectman.
Of course, in the capital plan, we did have $2 million available, or, in the non-recurring, which was done over a 5-year period.
Right, but I believe we put this into the capital project part, not
Yeah.
the non-recurring.
Yeah.
Do you remember if you put that in for 10 years or?
We didn't delineate between 10 and 20 as far as that was concerned, but it was in the longer term. It was in the long schedule. But we could work with the financial advisor to structure it so that, the payments would come in the first 5.
Okay. Mr. Chair, again, just to your earlier comment, this did come up rather quickly on your agenda tonight.
Yep.
I would hope going forward that we could, when we present a bonding resolution, that we also present an updated waterfall chart so that that would be available for everybody's review.
I appreciate that, and knowing that we had this in the capital plan document helps. So thank you. We also want to change in the title. We want to list the elementary schools instead of saying 5 elementary schools.
In the
Would
lead
like to list all
paragraph.
5. Any other changes?
Are those all different amendments?
No, we can do it all as one amendment if we
Okay.
need to.
Perfect.
They'll be brought by me and then seconded, I guess, by Mr. Mayor, I think, seconded all of them. He did the first one anyway. Any other changes, questions, comments? Mr. DeWitt?
We never do say anything in here that this is actually including a warranty. And included in the 900,000 is a warranty, right? So should we say that we not only are designating?
It is
It does say
extended warranty.
extended warranty in there.
It's inclusive of
Paragraph
design
1.
oversight,
I've got
extended
one page
warranty.
for it.
Oh, my bad. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Mayor?
I have a question that's not specific to this. It's, one of the things that's very clear here is that the $901,000 is focused on the.
Can you use your mic, please?
I'm sorry, I apologize. Mr. Chair, one thing that's been very clear here is that the $901,000 is developed based upon focusing on the repairs and modifications necessary to adhere to the requirements of a Johns Manville warranty. And second thing is, if you look at, the Hoffman, I forgot the name of his country, Tetreau, comparative, there's obviously multiple scenarios of taking care of the roof problem. And so I'm wondering two things, and this goes back to my question earlier that you followed up on very well, Mr. Flynn, Mr. Chair. If we're going to do the evaluation anyway, if we vote for the evaluation, and I assume then that would be clear as to what we need, what we don't need, how much does that delay the project? If we voted for the evaluation dollars, got that result, and then voted for that result, how much would that delay the project? And what problems would it create? Because it seems to me it wouldn't create a Manville problem if it doesn't delay the timeline that much.
The approval process would delay, right?
Right.
So it would be,
Like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months?
5 schools would be like 4 or 5 months.
You'd have to go all the way through the process to get the 100,000, do the stuff, go all the way back through all the bodies again to get the rest of the money, right?
right.
6 months.
Why 6 months?
It's only worked here a year, I can tell you. 6 months would be quick. Sorry, I'm not. I've only worked here a year, I already know how it works. Okay, so let's say you send the 100,000, let's just make the number up. You send $100,000 to the RTM. Best case scenario, if they're accepting of this, is at the end of October, they would take that. That's the best case scenario, although there are some scenarios, it may not be till January, but let's say it's the end of October.
Well, it's going to be the same, whether it's 901 or 100,000.
Correct.
Okay.
And so that, then the evaluation gets done, right? We still haven't committed to doing the project with the manufacturer. Now we have to go back in, and let's say it's $800,000 that's necessary. That has to start through the whole process again. That process would be, what, February, March, we're into budget. I think you're looking at 4 to 6 months at best, just looking at how long it takes things to go through. And so at that point, I think you would be really I think by doing it that way, what you're basically saying is you don't really want to participate, we would not be able to participate in the warranty extension component of this. It doesn't mean we couldn't do some repairs, but you would definitely be out of that game entirely. I think that's the balancing act that you have here. And I'm sympathetic to the two-step process, but I think there's a timing issue and a warranty issue, and that's how you get paid the big money to make these decisions.
You get paid the biggest money in the room, actually.
That's right.
One of the comments that Tetreau made was that every roof project comes with a warranty. So is it true that there would be no warranty potential if you did it in 2 steps? And I guess maybe Mr. Chair, maybe that should be addressed to Tetreau?
Right. Not on this extension part, right?
Yeah. Our outside consultant, can you answer that? Is that?
If you're doing a brand-new roof, it comes with a warranty. If I just come to do repairs, I'll warranty my workmanship, but you're not gonna get a warranty just because you use warranty.
So this significant amount of work does not come, you cannot get a warranty with it?
Yeah, well, I'm just, because he wants to make another amendment, I'm just trying to,
No.
okay.
You get a 2-year warranty, not a 5-year warranty.
I'll give you a year warranty if you want me to come fix some leaks. If you want me to, you want me to.
Okay. So earlier you said all your jobs come with a 2-year warranty. That's just,
Not repairs.
that's just, okay, when you had jobs, you meant new roofs. Thank you very much. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any other questions, comments on the amendment? Mr. Mayor, okay, Deb?
And in the title, do you
Yeah.
also want to change
Yes, I want the
Yes.
5 elementary
Number 5.
schools listed.
the list? And do you want it to say a resolution appropriating an amount not to exceed?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, one of the things I was trying to do in tightening up the language was address exactly what you were trying to do with what we talked about with the 2-step process. So if there's anybody else that's got any comments on here that addresses tightening up the language so that it's, there's no expansion of scope here, there's no additional work to be done, it's just what we're saying, that's what I'm trying to get to. So as well as not do the bonding further than perhaps the useful life is, or at least the warranty is, which is why we tightened it up to 5, or why I said that. Any other questions, comments, or amendments from board members? Seeing none, I'll go to the public for only any comments on the amendments. Seeing no comments on the amendments, we'll go back to the board. We're going to take a vote on just the amendments, which are changing it, the 901 to not to exceed 901, which is listing out the 5 elementary schools and changing the length of the bonds to 5 years. Those were the amendments to the document before us. All in favor of those amendments? Those opposed? Abstentions? That carries. So the bond appropriation as amended is now back before the board. Any other questions, comments, concerns from board members on the appropriation as a whole? Seeing none, questions and, Mrs. Leclerc.
I think I support this because there's a lot of roofs that have to be repaired, but I would like to see a plan on how we're going to get back on track to actually do all the roofs that have to be done.
Yeah.
So,
Mrs. Leclerc, I agree with you, and I'd also like to understand better some type of transition from capitalizing or rather bonding or capitalizing to what should be in the operating budget and how that gets transitioned so that we're not, it just doesn't seem right to me that there's $90,000 in the operating budget relative to over 1 million square feet of roofs that need to be maintained. And I think we need, and the only thing I can look to as an example is the transition we did with the paving, where we worked collaboratively with the administration and the RTM to, over a couple of years time, transition that back into the operating budget so that we can make sure that we're maintaining the roofs that we have. Yeah, Mr. Mayor?
Your concern is that we're bonding things that should be in maintenance.
Yeah, arguably, we're bonding repair items here. I think there's an argument that could be made for that. Now, you are extending the useful life of this, so, and that's evidenced by an extension of the warranty, and there are some extenuating circumstances with some of the other roof projects facing us. But me personally, when then I look and I talk about, $90,000 of annual expense and really using warranty proceeds as a cushion against maintenance repair, I'm just uncomfortable with that we're not doing that, that's not being appropriately reflected in the budget. my own personal view.
You're not certain.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'd like to explore it, you know? Mr. Brown?
Assuming this makes it through the process, what I'd like to see is the actual, if it's possible, in the end, the actual quotes, how they come in,
Yeah.
and compare it to these estimates. Can we do that? You just
So
have
we'd like
to-
Hoffman's reports back on each of the roofs to see what the comparison is to the 901. Yeah, but I think we want it formally, we don't want to go hunting for it. We want to look at it and see, you know.
You want to see it at the report time by the architect?
When we get it back before you spend the funds, we'd like to see what's going to be spent, so we'll know that we're going to get the rest back. Is that correct, Mr. Brown? Okay. Mr. Brockville?
Thanks, Tom. I just want to say, I'm going to vote no on this when
Yep.
it comes up. And the only reason I want to say something beforehand is that I don't want to vote no because I don't think that there's roof repairs to be done and that they shouldn't be done.
Yep.
But what I'm concerned about here is that I think the process has been flawed. I think that the estimates have been derived from a requirement of Johns Manville and not necessarily from what actual work needs to be done on the roofs. Those two may intersect, by the way, I don't know. And if we approve this bonding resolution as is, we lose control, or any control we have of this process. At that point, the Board of Ed is responsible from here on in, assuming the RTM passes it, to do as they choose up to $900,000. If we do the alternate method that you described, I know it delays it a little bit, and get the independent reports in, and hopefully those reports would be getting estimates not necessarily only to John Manville's requirements,
Yep.
then we would have the chance to vote on it at that point with new information. So just personal opinion is that I just don't think we're handling this properly. I think we're losing, we have some significant questions about how this estimates have been derived,
Yep.
and yet we're willing to pass a bond resolution that completely releases any oversight or control that we have over those numbers later on. So,
I think it's a fair point, and I think it goes back to our discussion at the Capital Planning Summit of a couple of weeks back regarding the process for approvals as a whole. And what concerns me, I think it's, what you've said is rightfully stated. My concern is we're holding up some needed projects so long that we're not fixing the problems. And not us, by the way. I think it's a town-wide thing. So, but it's a very valid point. Yeah, Mr. Mayor?
I have the same concerns, but I was planning on voting yes. But, to satisfy those concerns, and this might be totally ridiculous, I really don't know. I mean, you could put something in the bonding resolution that the final bids, Mr. Brown is indicating he wants to see the final bids. You could put something in the resolution that the final bids would come back for further review or something and approval by the Board of Finance before the money's expended or something. I mean, it becomes very skloogey.
I don't know whether that's even legal. Yeah, Mr. Tetreau?
I am definitely not bond counsel, but I believe there was some question just a couple meetings back about whether we're allowed to pass a bond resolution that is contingent on other things.
Yeah.
And I think that the ruling there was a no. No, I'm not trying to say it's identical to what we're doing here, but without bond counsel present, I would be cautious of making that kind of amendment to the resolution.
I would concur with Mr. Tetreau on that, the contingent resolutions as far as the bonding portion legally become, it really muddies the water and it could potentially cause a problem.
Jim's no. Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right, seeing none, do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Mr. Brown? So the item is now before us. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion passes. So that'll go
Three
for
were opposed.
3 were opposed, 5 in favor. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Briggs, thank you for coming. Gentlemen, thank you. Mr. Morbido, Mr. Cullen, our consultant, thank you very much. Dr. Title. Yeah.
Another vote without bond counsel.
All right, we got one more. Item number 60, hear and consider and act upon a series of transfer of funds to correct overdrafts in department budgets. We need to take care of this, right, Mr. Hiller?
Yes, sir.
So,
These are the eight various budgets, several of which there have been discussions over the past fiscal year that we knew were coming, a few surprises, I suppose. They are with, this basically balances out our books on the expenditure side for the previous fiscal year as required under state statute. I did distribute also a brief memo which explains the primary reasons for each overage, most of which I would think have been corrected in the current year's budget. Obviously, some are, the largest one is directly related to the extraordinarily heavy snowfalls last winter, December and January.
okay, so if we go, the big items, town planning and zoning, that was just they were under and is the first selectman's office?
Most, where they're, particularly in the first two, and where we're taking them from, there were vacancies within the town plan and zoning regular payroll. There were vacancies, as this department's aware, as this board's aware, within my department, and there were, rather than stringing out a whole bunch of lines.
Well, then what's the overage? What's the overage in the other areas is more important than what the underages are?
I'm sorry?
What are the overages? Why is the first selectman's office over and why are legal
The
services?
first selectman's office is over primarily because the former first selectman, when he resigned, received a payment for
Vacation?
accumulated vacation time.
What's the legal services overage?
Legal services is primarily due to in excess of $40,000 legal costs that have been incurred on the Hoydens Hill softball field. And also, we have 170 tax appeals that are commencing to wind their way through the legal system, which is probably a 50% increase in number of tax appeals from the 2005 revaluation.
The property insurance versus life insurance?
We improperly budgeted on life insurance. That was corrected in the current budget. The portion that was allocated towards life insurance was improperly budgeted.
And contingency and unemployment we were aware of?
Yes, sir.
Police and fire we're aware of. We're waiting for a report back on that at some point soon, correct?
On the fire overtime.
Yeah.
This is an ongoing situation.
Well, I'm not asking that we get it now. I'm saying there was going to be, Mr. Tetreau, I think had said at one point you guys were going to come back and forth with something.
Correct.
I believe we've gotten a report back from the fire department on that, and I think that the next step would be schedule time on your agenda to review
Okay.
that.
Maybe the quarterly meeting?
Quarterly
Okay.
review with the
Yeah.
chief and deputy chief.
You'll
That'd be
notify
good.
the chiefs.
Hydrant and water services, was that just a, I know-
Just a minor
Yeah.
swap there. It's really going to street lights and more rates than anything.
we're aware of the public works, the snow removal. What's the rental storage?
The rental and storage is primarily the private contractors that are used for when we had excessive snow for two purposes, for moving the snow during the storms, and also rental of equipment to move snow from the downtown areas off the streets during the night to.
Mr. Chair, if I
Yeah.
might, the naming of this account has caused trouble during the last budget season also. Folks tend to look at it
Yeah.
for rental of storage space as opposed to rental of equipment and potentially rental of storage space. But it's the rental of equipment that, in this case, I
Can we
believe it
change the
applies
name?
to. That would eliminate a lot of confusion. I'm
Yeah,
not sure
we perhaps should, I think in the budget time, I think look at maybe even a split out of that account so that we see what we're really paying for snow removal.
Yeah.
Yeah. This caused an issue when looking at the conservation budget during the spring. If you sat in on the RTM deliberations, you would have noticed that at that
Yeah.
point. I think that we're going to try and clarify the account titles in the future budget process to make sure they're more easily understood.
Okay. Thank you. And I believe we talked about the Smith-Richardson water
It's
issue.
really, it was really, last summer was a dry summer. I think we're going to have the opposite results this year. And really,
Did anyone have any other questions on these items? I just kind of wanted to run through them to make sure we all have the opportunity. Mary?
Well, Chris was going first. Oh, one is, do we have any kind of vacation pay policy? Most private companies, like if you don't take vacation, after a year you lose it.
There-
And
there is a policy which is in effect, and people in the category that the former First Selectman is in, the management category, were allowed to carry over up to 60 days of accumulated vacation time. There obviously is a vacation policy as to the number of days that an individual is allowed. Basically, at that level, it starts at 20 days a year, and then there's a few steps up over longevity.
I think
how many vacation days was this?
This was, I believe it was 60. The total payment to the former First Selectman, I don't have the exact figure, but it was roughly $29,400. And so this wasn't all of it, the $22,000, but the accumulated pay that was, when he left, he received a payment in addition to his regular salary of $29,400. Slightly over that, but nothing significantly over that.
Yeah, just simply the vacation pay number was widely reported in the news media at the time that it was paid out. The answer to your question about written policies, yes, and extensively and in great detail, because they're all covered. Most of them are covered in the bargaining unit contracts. So pretty much, and frankly, when I came in, you know, in my position, they hand you here's the set, here's the deal. So it's all very documented in terms of what you keep, what you can use, what you get to roll over, and what the maximums are for each position.
Do we budget for that and then carry it over from year to year?
What it is not budgeted for, the one thing I would say is that it does show up in the annual report. There is a liability in the government-wide financial statements. I'd have to check what it is, but it is a number collectively, and this is for all full-time employees, that is in excess of $3 million. And I take you back to, I think, 2 years ago. One never knows when it's going to hit. We had 3 police captains who retired at the same time, received significant payments in the similar amounts, and you don't know what department it's going to hit. I suspect, you know, I don't want to pick on any one individual, but as you're aware, Mr. Brown has just retired. I don't know and haven't checked with Human Resources if there's any issue with him. He may have some accumulated vacation time to which he's entitled to. And the list goes on to virtually the majority of full-time employees within the town. As Mr. Tetreau says, with, there are limitations. In most cases, we have 7 bargaining units, and it's contractual.
Thank you. Mrs. Leclerc, anything else?
That's it for now.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Seeing nobody, item number 6 is now before us to hear, consider, and act upon the series of transfers of funds to correct overdrafts in the department and budgets as listed out. Do we have a second? We have a second. Any
Who
comment?
was the first?
Mr. Polito, any comments from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that item carries unanimously. Item number 7, to hear, consider, and act upon a request from the fiscal officer to approve Schedules A, B, C, D, E, F, included with the agenda, carrying over funds for encumbrances and reappropriations as of June 30th, 2011, as supported by purchase orders or letters requested by department heads or the fiscal officer. Excuse the yawn of the late night.
Again, this is required.
Started very early.
As far as the accounting procedures for the audit, we're looking at this basically retrospectively some 90-plus days back in time. These were purchase orders for goods and services that had not been received, particularly on Schedule A and Schedule E, which relates to the Board of Education. In most cases, not all certainly, those goods or services have been received by this time.
And these are all current year? There's nothing extending from prior years on any of the schedules?
Not on Schedule A or E. Those are the purchase orders. On Schedule C,
There's Schedule D, there's one, right?
I'm sorry?
Schedule D. Yeah,
D is a reappropriation, and there is a memo from Mr. Stanky,
Yep.
which I distributed with the agenda. You may recall that there was funds that were appropriated a couple of years back for what I'll call the bond release program. The firm that they were using, Kenny Associates, is no longer doing that service, and Mr. Stanky has asked for a reappropriation of those funds, $12,313, in order that soil testing and related costs regarding potential land acquisition from the state of Connecticut of land adjacent to the Merritt Parkway.
Sure. Thank you. Is there any questions, comments, concerns on any of these items? Seeing none, we'll go to the public. Anything from the public? None. Back to the board. Do I have a motion? Mr. DeWitt, do I have a second? We'll go to Mr. Brown. Okay, the item to hear, consider and act upon a request from the fiscal officer to approve Schedules A, B, C, D, E, and F, carrying over funds for encumbrances and reappropriations as of June 30th, 2011, supported by purchase orders and letters of request by department heads or the chief fiscal officer. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? That item is done. Item number 8, hopefully last item on the agenda, to hear, consider, and act upon any communications. I do have one that I received from the fire union today. The fire union wanted us to know that their Fire Ops 101 training, which is their day-long training program to be a firefighter, which is held annually at the fire training station over on One Rod Highway, correct, Paul? I know that I had the opportunity to do this program last year, and Mr. Tetreau did as well. It's a very worthwhile day. It's about 8 hours. This year, it's Saturday, October 15th, at the Fire Training Center at 205 One Rod Highway. Start time is 8:30 a.m., and it'll go until early to mid-afternoon. They are welcome to come down and check it out. They are filled up with participants this year, but if anyone is interested in trying the program, we can see what they can do about getting them in either next year or if they have a cancellation this year. They might also run a new one in the springtime. It's a good day. There's nothing like going and looking what these guys go through on a day-to-day basis, and we found it very worthwhile, I think, last year. So that's a plug for that program. Otherwise, that's it for communication. Mr. Hiller, I don't know of any other business? Okay, so no other business before the board? Yes, Mr. Mayor?
Yankees 7, Detroit 1, top of the 8th.
All right. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Can we, I don't know if we have to do it now, but executive session next time, maybe?
Yeah, I think I can just schedule that. Paul, we don't need a vote for me to schedule perhaps an executive session, right?
Or
To review some legal matters?
certainly.
Okay. All right. Motion to adjourn, Mr. Polito, seconded Mr. DeWitt. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? We're done, everybody. Another late night. Thank you.
Another lane.